Hanji, do a setup intro. It's one of those episodes which I've looked forward to for a long time since we thought of the idea. Again, soch vi sach pashi manch paunde, but for me, growing up in Birmingham, a huge inspiration and role model has always been Ustad Kirpal Singh Ji, from whom I've also learned and also who take an active part in engaging with our community, with our kids through Sangeet. And it's one of those episodes that I can't wait to dig into, and I'm sure Juan and Sarab feel the same way. And it's a huge, I'm going to say privilege. I know that you don't want me to say that word, but it genuinely does feel like a privilege because through Sangeet, you've brought so many people together and connected them to Gurbani and Sikhi. And I'm sure we'll go through some of the examples of the Sangeet camps that are organised and the number of concerts that you've done in your life so far. But you know, with that, I don't know. There's no introduction that could justify. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't need to say anything really. I mean, sab Sadhguru ji ne kita, and I think that will come up. No matter what question you ask me and what aspect it is, it's always going to go back to that. So ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਹੈ. Anything you've like said about me, it's none of it's mine. ਸਭ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਹੈ. I can't imagine anything about any aspect of my life that isn't, is because of Sadhguru ji. And so ਸਭ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਹੈ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ. ਮੇਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. All the bad things that are left over.
And this is one of the things that are growing up and having opportunities to talk to you, I've always found interesting. How did you get to that point in your life where you can say that? And genuinely, I from an outsider's perspective, it does feel like you genuinely do believe that as well. Were you always like into Sikhi?
So no, I would say, I mean, there's so many different facets of Sikhi as well, Anna. But the way I am now, no, I wasn't always like that. I was both chanchal and very sharti. That was my natural like sense.
Can you just explain what chanchal and sharti means for those English listeners? English speaking.
I don't know what the exact thing is. One of those things that are like you bounce it and it kind of moves and it carries on moving. It doesn't stop.
Pendulum.
Like a pendulum. I was thinking more of the things that you box. And they keep on moving. Once you've like moved it, and that's how I constantly felt that my mind could not stay still. And until Sangeet, until Sadhguru ji ne kirpa nahi kiti, until that moment, I just felt that no matter what I was doing, I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't get my mind to stop. And I think you guys would have heard it many times. Dolan te rakho Prabhu, nanak de kar hath. Until sach pai da hath nahi pya na sir te, I couldn't like sit still in anything, physically or mentally. And I think before that, I wouldn't say I was away from Sikhi. I think I was still in the school. I was still a student. But not there because I wanted to be.
Spoke to Gurdeep, and he gave me a few examples of your sharata as a kid, and one of them was during langar, Ballu was sitting next to you, and I think there's paneer, shahi paneer di sabji, and Ustad ji, they got a barfi that piece and mixed it in.
So it was a piece of khoya. And I shaped it at the same size as the standard paneer size. And
so fully planned it, right? Full planning went into it.
And then I just sort of planted it in his matar paneer and mixed it, and then just carried on normal, with just in the corner of my eye, just watching his reaction. And then
what was the reaction?
And then it was just like suddenly that it's just like a jidna koi basuri sort of lagi hundi hai. It's like all of a sudden his expression changed on his face. Yeah, and that was my cue to look the other way. And I knew he would be looking around like thinking someone's done something. And as soon as he looked at me, I couldn't like, I was really good at that actually, just keeping a blank expression like before, like
good poker face.
It's nothing nothing to do with me. And
Yeah.
but yeah, he knew. I had like Ballu, like especially, I'd done it to him that many times that he knew that I was in the vicinity. There was definitely something to do with me.
Do you think of you being chanchal in your upbringing as a child? Do you think that's helped you as a Sangeetkar to be able to be so adaptable?
So that having that so when I'm saying chanchal, I think I looked at a situation and I saw an opportunity. That I saw it obviously in the negative way. So what can I do in this situation to brighten up my own day? Yeah, to make the like minutes pass in a blissful way in my in the way I used to see it anyway. So just like Bart Simpson kind of thing, right? Okay, the teachers look the other way. What can I do in that much time? That could just amuse myself. So I was always doing things like that, little pranks. But yeah, I think it does help in music because you've got, especially if you're doing Sangeet, someone's done a phrase and you've literally got just a second before they start the next phrase, and in those nanoseconds to think of a phrase that matches or complements what's just happened. I think it does help.
When you play, your personality comes through the Saj, and it's something Sachipashi also said in Thailand. Ki chalo, there's loads of prachariks doing English prachar, but you don't need to speak because you're doing prachar through your tarshanai. And what an incredible compliment. And Gurdit said ki it would, if you had white color, if you had white paint on a blank canvas, it'd be so boring. There's no flavor in that. But chalo, you got to this point, but your childhood, did you want to be a Ragi?
No, very, very opposite. Very opposite from wanting to be Ragi. I think ਜਦੋਂ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, I remember like one thing we were very blessed with. We had a really good sangat. Now I see it as good. At that time, it was like I used to think of it as totally the opposite thing. We used to walk in the Gurdwara, and I remember my dad used to be there, like sitting close to the asan on the right hand side, and I used to see that he was watching me. This is me doing matha tek, like walking towards us, and I used to I could feel his eyes on me, and like trying to say to me, okay, you're going to do matha tek, and then you're going to sit next to me, and you're going to do an arm simran. And I used to just look at my mom, and I used to be walking that way. Okay, I'm going to do matha tek. I'm going to go next to you and sit there because you're going to let me get away with whatever I need to do. And so I used to start I used to do matha tek, get up and start walking to the left, and I used to hear. Those are the most irritating sounds. Yeah, the most irritating sound. And you just want to say I didn't hear it, kind of thing. But when that becomes that you got to look and then my dad would say ithe aake baitha na now uthe baina, and it used to be okay. Naam simran vele bada aukha hunda si because you couldn't hear anything in the Updesh. It was just horns and mastaniyan di awaaz sun rani. Couldn't focus on anything that was going on, so it was so hard to sit there in that. Then jado kirtan hunda si na, that was like my dad used to sit in the kirtan ya diwan hunda si, so his time was preoccupied in the kirtan, and that's when we like cue ke hun bhaj lo to. Yeah. So we very opposite. We used to like a kirtan ho raha, but we liked it for the wrong reasons because we knew that this is our chance to escape. But the only thing we did like chane bajane, but jinu talim nahi hegi ya lay bare pata nahi hai, soon as you pick it up and you start doing it and everyone looks at you straight away and think you think I'm just hitting the chane like you are, but they're not in tal, you're kind of tripping everyone. So soon as we used to start playing, jithe kadi man bhi karna na ke baja liye, jadon sikhe nahi hunde, and very quickly someone will say yaar tu raat bas kar please, and it was, I found that, okay, all right, better not to try anything, better just to play. Ignorance is bliss. Why worry about learning or anything, jado inna maza aa raha by just being naughty, te wo karanda kyon I mean stress kara and this and that. So it was very opposite from what I think now.
So your Gurdwara experience at the time, it was mostly why did you go to the Gurdwara? Was it because you had friends there that you wanted to play with, or was it the Kada Prashad?
Sade ghar ch inne ji sige. I would know, like, coming of friends. We just had, like, the family was so big, and it was a joint family, and there were so many people in the house, you know. So I never had that issue. And Gurdit was always my best friend, you know, like my go-to, like, companion to play with. And then and Ballu was there as well, and so it was always, you know, like, either I was playing with him, or I could, like, I was on the receiving side when it was came to, like, playing with Gurdit, and then I was the other way when I was playing with Ballu, so he had to take it from me. And so both things, you know, like, you know, so it wasn't that. And I went to the Gurdwara because we had to go. Changa lagda siga, but it wasn't, you know, like, ke aapa utte kuch sikhn nu challe hain. There was not that feeling at all. It wasn't like, you know, aapa school challe hain. It was just like, this is the thing that we do. Sare jante on that day. Aapa sanu vi jana padna. And, you know, after, as soon as the whistle blows of the ardas, we're going to run around and cause as much havoc as we can, you know. But sare de vich, we did get like a sense of community, and like we used to see each other. Sare, you know, Raju, Gurmukh, sade to vadde Gushi Paji honi. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਮਿਲੀਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, and that was always a good experience as well. ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ like Gushi Paji, Jita Paji, they were quite older than us, and we didn't know anything about Kirtan, but we knew that they did it. And, you know, in that for us was like, you know, wow, that these guys, it's changene, you know, like, you know, we can never aspire to be anything like what they are, but, you know, it's changene. Inna sanu pata si ke changene. And inna sanu e vi pata si ke, you know, those were the examples that were given to us always. Ke dekh oh kar rahe ne. You know, like, look at them. You know, unna wago kyun nahi ban sakde? Yeah, unna wago banan di koshish karo. So we knew that they were good, even though we didn't know, you know, like, how to be like that. You know, in Changasiga. So it was a really good experience going to the Gurdwara.
Pitaji, it sounds like, was always a positive influence in that. We Kirtan Sekh this gande sige. How did you get involved in becoming a Ragi, or what was like the turning point of?
Yeah, so there's a big central point in both mine and Gurdit's life, you know, and I've probably told the story many times, but I don't get tired of telling it again, because, again, I relived that moment again and again. It was in the summer of 94. We used to go to India quite often. We've got a house in Ludhiana, and we used to go there for a holiday and vacation. And for us, you know, going India, it was never about Sadhguruji darshan karan challe or anything. That wasn't in the, you know, it wasn't in the grand, it was just a holiday, you know. And going to Panesar was something that we knew we did, but it was like, you know, okay, ek vari kar liya, matha tek liya, okay, bagging for that day, and then the rest of the time is bliss. And you know, like, like, even when I say that now, I just think, you know, how, you know, like, it was asleep. I was asleep through the beginning of my life, you know. I had so much opportunity that I just didn't know it was there even. And but utte jaake na matha teke piche bajana, not listen to what everything happened, didn't want to take anything in, and wanted to get away from it as quick as possible. But that day we got late, and we was going to Panesar to do matha tek to Sadhguruji. Appa late ho gaye. And so the Nithanim and Kirtan had finished, and we were thinking, it's like perfect, you know, okay, you know, like, this is what we came for. But then my dad was like, nahi, appa like Panesar aaye hain, darshan karan to bina kidan ja sakde, you know, and unhone sevaka nu puchya, peredara nu puchya ke when can we do darshan, and they said sham nu itthe Sadhguruji baithak karde hunde ne, ode vich tusi ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕ ਲਿਓ. We didn't even know this existed. We in the UK, ਜਦੋਂ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, because there was so much, obviously, you know, ਜਿਹੜੇ VIPs ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਸੀ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ, ਜਾਂ ਬਾਹਰੋਂ ਸੰਗਤ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨੇੜਤਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ. We used to see ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ in the divan ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਦੇ ਦੌਰਾਨ. ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ in the ਨਿਤਨੇਮ were doing Nithanim, you know, fully focused, and a role model ke naam sun idda karida. We didn't want to like be in that position even, you know, so we just saw them as an authoritarian figure. And because we had watched Ramayana, Mahabharata, you know, we used to say, you know, ke Ramchandra ji ya Krishan ji ya ye sare na tiri maar dene, and they literally there to destroy the baddies, and we knew that we were bad. Yeah. Inna sanu pata si ke, you know, shararta ya, you know, if there's something naughty, that we are like the manifestations of those things. Yeah. And so we were like pause, you know, like we were scared ke Sadhguru ji ne sanu khich lana, kisse gallo, you know, they're going to tell us off ke tusi aa nahi karde, oh nahi kita, inna nahi kita. we never saw any other side of Sadhguru Ji other than this. During the Kirtan ਆਪਾਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਭੱਜ ਜਾਣਾ, during the Nitrim ਧਿਆਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ. This is the first time we saw Sadhguru Ji in a setting where they were talking to youngsters. Balwant Paji, Sonu Paji, ਸਾਰੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਸੀਗੇ. And Sadhguru Ji ਵਾਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ individually ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ and encouragement ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ. And I still remember, Gurudev was on my left and I looked at him and we didn't say anything to each other, we were quite telepathic in that sense. And we looked at each other and we were like, we were both shaking our heads, okay, if we had learned something in our life, Sadhguru Ji would have been, sanu yo thapda milta. And this, like, without the conversation happening, this was like going on in between us. And then suddenly I looked at Sadhguru Ji and they were looking at me, and that's the first time, Sach Pasha Ji's eyes like met with my eyes. In that moment, ke Sach Pasha Ji ਇਸ਼ਾਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ Sangeet, they went like this and they like this gesture and they said ki tusi, like what do you do? And they reply the which I just signaled ke I went like this and then I went like this and ke bahut thoda, like thode naal bhi thoda, and like full of regret ke ke je kuch kita honda, that would have been very different ke us vele shabash mildi instead te Sach Pasha Ji us vele, then they said to Pita Ji ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਲ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਇੰਨੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਖਰਚ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖਾਲੀ ਹੱਥ ਚੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਵਾਪਸ, ਹੈ ਨਾ. they said ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਵਾਲੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ, ਹੈ ਨਾ. And I remember like my dad coming to the back and telling me and Gurudev ਕਿ ਦੇਖੋ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ. And my dad didn't tell them the full story ke, batheri ko, my dad did try ke asi sikhiye, but appa like I told you apna sharti nature, neither were we good students and te upro sanu pehla je teacher bhi mile sige, they weren't, I would chalo it's no point in finding faults in the teacher here, but they're like I did have like a bit of a rough experience with my initial teacher. And as in they weren't as patient as my latter teachers were, and they're all, like, so we were totally turned off by Anna, but that time they said, look, Sadhguru Ji ne hun aap tode bare puchya hai ke tusi jaake arj karo Sadhguru Ji nu, hai na, and ke ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ ਕਰ ਸਕੀਏ. And I remember, it's only a 10-meter walk from where we were to where Sadhguru Ji was, but my heart was thumping, dug, 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 dug. And like, I could literally feel my heart beat in my ears. I remember that, like, distinctly feeling like I can feel my heart beating in my ears. And I wasn't going to say anything, even Gurudev was going to do the urge. I was just literally walking along, and I was going to like hide in the back of him. And and Gurudev did the urge, and Sach Bhai said, Hanji, that's so. And, and Jada, like the momentum that he had built came at bolna hai, like, soon as Sadhguru Ji, and then, they say, Hanji, like, it just totally threw him off, but somehow he composed himself and, started saying, कि Sadhguru Ji, आप जी साढ़े ते किरपा करो, सानू राग दो, तां करके असी भी आप जी नू खुश कर सकिए. And so Gurudev was just starting that sentence off, and the Sach Pasha Ji ne मेरे गाल इत्थे गाल ते अपना हाथ रखिया. And like I said, dolan te rakho Prabhu Nanak dekar hath. Menu sachi muchi, it felt like, someone had, jidna aapa table nu tune kar de na, literally like choti ji sat la ke na changed the switch, flicked the switch on me, and Sach Bhai bade khush hoye hai, they said, khush ta tusi mainu us tarah kari jane hai, and they said it twice, khush ta tusi mainu us tarah kari ja rahe hain, kirpa kar de hun par, they said, and that, I remember uthon fe Gurudev nu bhi thapi diti Sach Pasha Ji ne te matha tek ke na. I remember getting up from that and like fully in my mind walking back to my seat thinking baki jeevan ede vich katna hun, like it was like a really big change, a big incident for me. And from that point nobody ever had to say to me ke tu baih ke aa cheez kar ya man la ke aa kar, it was totally transformed my life.
How old were you at that point?
I was 11 turning 12.
Wow.
No.
Yeah. And you, so Gurdit did the Arjun Punjabi.
Yeah.
Did you have Punjabi, like, did you learn Punjabi or was this?
Bolan nasi, but very, very tutti-frutti.
Haan ji.
It was, you know, like...
that probably added to the pressure talking to such a passion.
Bilkul, you know, like, we knew कि पंजाबी ची गल करनी पैंदी है, you know, ते इन्ना भी सानू दस्सिया सीगा कि, you know, सत बचन किद्दां कहीदा, this and that, you can't just say...
Was that through Pitaji that they taught you how to?
Look, ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰ 'ਚ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਦਾ ਆਉਣਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਰਿਹਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ। ਸਿੱਖ ਸਾਧ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹੀ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ। ਸਾਡੇ ਦਾਦਾ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਭਜਨੀਕ ਸੀਗੇ, ਬਹੁਤ ਨਿਤਨੇਮੀ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਸੰਗਤ ਦਾ ਆਉਣਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ। ਸੋ ਇੰਨਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ ਵਿਰਸੇ 'ਚ ਕੁਛ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। So a lot of it was like happening in the background, even though we didn't know it was happening. But that was a major changing like turning point. Like for me, I looked at that's a junction. My train was going this way, and Sadhguru ji said, "Nahi, idhar nu jana hai." And a guru hi kirpa kar sakda. Like who says na ke pichle augan like oh daya karke he says na ke tu idhar nu chalya na te it's going to take you so long to get to where you want to go. Hana te idhar nu main tenu pa dena. And that's the rasta that you need to go on to.
You said about teer. That's the aniyale teer.
Oh, waki aniyale teer. Yeah. Oh, jinu lagya hunda na. Oh, inna kail hunda na. You can't pull that teer out. Aniyale teer da matlab hunda na. The arrow has got a curve at the end of it. And, once it's pierced you, if you pull it out, it's going to pull everything out. You have to leave it in there forever. And, teer jinu lagya hunda na, he doesn't want someone to pull that teer out. That je oh pain vi hundi hai na, or you get to love that pain. And oh waki Sadhguru ji de ne aniyale teer ne sareyan de sach pae ne chalaye ne, and it's not ke mere te hi chalaya hai, is ek kirpa sach pasha sareyan te kar dene. That's how I feel, and that's the beauty of what you guys are doing. We are getting to see all of the people, ke sach pae ne kinya te o teer chalaye hoye ne.
There was something incredible that you mentioned, to give context to your experience. So that was 12. You were 12 years old, and then obviously you went through higher education, trying to look for a job. And I remember you said to me at one point, I look back reflecting on my life, if I've got to this point, Sach Paatshah Kirpa naal hai for one, if I wasn't on this path, then tusi o Gurbani da praman ditta si ki rulte firte koi baat na puchda.
ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਤੁਕ ਨਾ, it's definitely how I feel. ਪਰ ਇਹ ਤੁਕ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਦੀ। ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਵੀ ਨਾ, I remember ਗੁੱਚੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰਮਾਣ ਲਾਤਾ ਇਹ ਵਾਲਾ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਏ ਦੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਵਾਲੇ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਵਾਲੇ ਆ, ਆਪਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਦੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਰੋਲਦਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦਾ, ਤੇ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਤੁਕ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ, ਇਹ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਆ। Yeah, but it's not, that is how I feel. ਕਿ ਜੇ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ, and that's not just about Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji, that's about Sadhguru Uday Singh Ji as well. Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਇਆ ਪੰਥ ਤੇ, and me personally, ਕਿੰਨਾ I find it very difficult. ਪਰ ਜੇ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਲੰਬੀਆਂ ਬਾਵਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮਤਲਬ ਔਖੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਚੋਂ ਕੱਢ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਂਦੇ, ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਹਮ ਰੁਲਤੇ ਫਿਰਤੇ, you see, ਕਿ ਬਾਕੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਰੁਲਦੀ ਫਿਰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਨੇ didn't have to, weren't obliged to, ਉਹ ਦਇਆ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੀ ਦਇਆ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੱਢ ਲਿਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਉਸ ਔਖੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। And that took, even though ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ says ਨਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ ਨਾ, they again say in a way ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ, that's the humbleness we see from ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ, ਸਭ ਕੁਛ ਕਰਤਾ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਅਕਰਤਾ ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਕੀਤਾ, I haven't done anything, ਇਹ ਤਾਂ like they like turn it all onto, they give all the credit to Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji, and Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji gave it to Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji. ਪਰ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਇਹੀ ਸਿੱਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ
as a kid, so 12 years old, just one more point that I wanted to trying to bring out. Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji's personality was such that it drew you in, and their smile was everything that you wanted. But why, reflecting on it now, why was that? ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਹੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ?
See, that until you don't have a personal love for Sach Paatshah, your personal relationship for your guru, to that state, oh hamesha fear ਦਾ ਹੀ ਇੱਕ relationship ਬਣਦਾ, you know, and that can only survive for so long. You can only do something out of fear for so long. But, you know, like when ਬੱਚਾ ਛੋਟਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, you can, you know, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦਬਕਾ ਮਾਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, ਗੁੱਸੇ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, yeah, you know, like try to discipline the child. But ਇੱਕ time ਆਉਂਦਾ ਕਿ he becomes big as you. You know, you can't, you know, like at that time, if you still only got that relationship, and it's not going to work at that stage, or it's not, you know, like he's got more strength than you at that stage. And you do need to, like, gentleman pao, tenaman pao, and that pao has to develop into that prem. But saad sangat de vich o prem upajda. Bina saad sangat to nahi upajda.
So saad sangat here, we're not talking about, you know,
not sadhu di sangat.
Sadhu di sangat.
So, like, if I looked at what was around me at that time, as my family and the role models I had, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਕੀਤਿਆਂ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਡੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਆ. And soon as you, otherwise you say, you know, this old man smiled at me. You know, that kind of things happens all the time, and you cross the road and you give someone way and, you know, he puts his hand up. I know inni khushi nahi hundi, chalo theek hai, acha, like, you, it's a common, like, response. But Sadhguru ji waste, you know, you do it all for that smile. And tusi apna sab kuch nishawar kar de hain, you know, ki us cheez waste. And I say, like, to my students, you know, either you do it कि वो नाराज ना हो जावे, or either you do it कि वो मेरे से खुश हो जावे, you know, किसी भी, like, take it either way. वो ही बंदा सोच सकता है जेड़ा प्रेमी है, you know, जेड़ा नौकर होंदा ना करदा वो भी है, you know, करदा वो भी, पर he doesn't do it out of love. You know, he does it out of a means end कि मैं काम करूँगा, I'm get paid, and that's it. जेड़ा प्रेमी होंदा ना, that person does it because कि वो उस चीज़ नू करना चाਹੁੰਦਾ क्योंकि सतगुरु जी नू चंगी लगदी है. जेड़ा अमृत वेला उदा ही उठदा, चंगी, बहुत चंगी गल है, पर whoever does it कि ये चीज़ ना सतगुरु जी नू चंगी लगदी है, and, you know, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਸਭ ਪ੍ਰੇਮਾ ਭਗਤੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ. And ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ Sadhguru ji, as soon as I start feeling that towards Sacha Pasha Ji, you know, then I didn't need any other, you know, nothing to push me to do anything, you know. It just became so, you know, consumed my life in that sense. And like, everything you wanted to do, like, you know, you just wanted that to somehow manifest in कि Sacha Pasha Ji tak ye gal pahunch jave te us karke mainu khushi mil jave, anything it was.
And like you said, you couldn't really do that until you had a personal relationship, because before then it was maybe they were on a pedestal, an unreachable pedestal, and it was fear. But when you had that personal connection, then it became love. It built up on love.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, so apa hamesha dekhde hain, there's so many sakhiyan, you know, Prahlad di le lo, ya, you know, jehde koi bhi jehde hoye ne avatar, ya, you know, examples. Tusi Bhai Kanhaiya di bahut bari example use ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ.
Role model, I think. That's
we should just change the name to the podcast to Bhai Kanhaiya podcast.
And those, you know, like, it's so easy to think, yeah, I could feed water to anyone. You know, and or chikedi okhi cheez hai, and मैं जाके I'll go and do it now, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't just that, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ mind ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ. But when I used to always look at these examples, I used to think, you know, ਹੈਗਾ ਤਾਂ we're in that same school, you know, or they, you know, like, ਆਪਾਂ same school ਚ and you see there's so many names on the board ਕਿ ਫਲਾਣੇ ਨੇ degree ਲਈ ਆ, you know, and you're saying ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਉਹੀ ਨਾਮ ਜਪ ਰਿਹਾ, ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਉਹੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਿਆ ਹਾਂ ਯਾਰ, ਕਿ why is there's nothing ਮੇਰੇ ਚ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ, you know, where's all the magic, where's all the, you know, where's everything, you know, like, you know.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. So when we went to Panesar for the first time, 2006, me, Gushi and Jatinder went together, and Gushi, he's walking through Panesar, it looks nice, it's a beautiful place, but he's imagining it like, this is not like, nothing like the DVD, he said. Because it's nothing like the DVD here.
Because he's imagining, I'm walking past this tree, I can't hear Kullaji singing.
And and it was just that moment we thought, you know what, this is real, you know what I mean? It's the same thing that you were saying.
You sit there and you kind of think, when is that going to start in my life? But that in itself is the you know, like that, the first step, you know, is when those thoughts start coming in your mind ke mere naal kyun nahi ho raha idna, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਆਖਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੀ ਬਿਰਤੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦੀ, and they used to say ਮੈਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ, because that means that person's on that path to discovery. He is curious to find out what's on the other side, and there's only a matter of time where he's gonna he's going to try to get there. And ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ you almost have to think, okay, ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਰਸਤਾ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ. And ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਵਾਲੀ ਸਾਖੀ ਵੀ ਸੁਣੀ ਹੋਈ, ਬਾਲਮੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਮਰਾ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਹੈ ਨਾ. ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ, they know ਕਿ alright, what it's not ਕਿ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਤੂੰ ਭਜਨ ਕਰ ਲਾ only, ਜਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਸੋਧ ਰੱਖ ਲਾ, ਜਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਆ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਲੈ, ਜਾਂ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰ ਲਾ. they know ਕਿ for this specific person what is the right thing to give, ਕਿਹੜੀ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਦਵਾਈ ਦੇਵਾਂ, and what's going to work for them. ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦਿੱਤਾ. They for whatever reason they saw that okay, this is the rasta for you, and this is the rasta for everyone. They don't say to anyone ke tu na kar, but like they kind of said to us to read, to know about Sikhi, learn it through music. And ਉਹੀ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਸੀਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਰਫ ਹੁਣ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. ਜਦੋਂ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਸਥਿਰਤਾ ਆਈ, ਕੌਨਸਨਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਵਧਿਆ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ, you can start hearing the ਉਪਦੇਸ਼, and ਉਹ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਪੈਣ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ. And it was through that ability to concentrate on something. ਉਵੇਂ ਜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਭ ਕੇ ਦਿੱਤੇ. ਅਗੇਨ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਕੀਤਾ. ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਮੰਗਣ ਦੀ ਹੈ, ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਕੋਟ ਪੈਂਟ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੋਈ ਲੈਤਾ ਹੈ. ਇੱਕ ਕਦਮ ਆਪਾਂ ਲਿਆ to do urge to ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪ really we didn't ask for anything else. We asked mainly ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਦਿਓ, what you're doing to all everyone else. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ. ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਨਾਮਦੇਵ, ਤ੍ਰਿਲੋਚਨ, ਕਬੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਤੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੂੰ ਤਾਰਿਆ, ਤੂੰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਤਾਂ ਤਾਰ ਦੇ. And we're kind of asking for that from Sacha Pasha Ji. And they said, okay, if you want that, then do this. All right, go do this. And through this, you'll start experiencing it. I can't say I've experienced or got to anything like that. ਮੈਂ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਦੂਰ ਹਾਂ. But ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਸਵਾਦ ਆਉਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ. And ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਭ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ.
You mentioned ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਗਿਰਦੀ ਹੋਈ ਸੀਗੀ. At what point did that happen?
So ਜਿਸ ਦਿਨ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਅੱਜ ਕੀਤੀ ਨਾ, ਉਸ ਦਿਨ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ I think ਉਦੋਂ ਵਿਦਿਅਕ ਸਮੇਲਨ ਹੋਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ. So ਵਿਦਿਅਕ ਸਮੇਲਨ ਉਦੋਂ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ 'ਚ ਹੋਇਆ, ਕਿਸਾਨ ਭਵਨ. And they said ਕਿ like immediately after ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ official ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਐਂਡ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਖਲੋ ਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕਿਆ, ਕੁਛ ਪੈਸੇ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਵੀ ਰੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ. And I can't remember, I was too not like my dad was worrying about all of these things, and I was just thinking pata nahi ki what's going to happen, but I was very excited, and I learned a little bit from Gushi Paji. Unhone mere pehla like basics dasse si ke saat te are te da. But ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ this was my first formal initiation, and ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੂਰਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕੀਤੀ, ਸਾਡਾ ਦੋਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਗੁਰਦਿੱਤੇਪਾਲ ਕਿਰਪਾਲ, ਸਾਡੇ ਦੋਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ they said ਕਿ ਦਿਲਰੂਬਾ ਦੋਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ. And then or I think they got if I was not mistaken, they might have said it the other way around, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਤਬਲਾ and ਦਿਲਰੂਬਾ, which is fine, but as in this, I think Sadhguru ji just like a gesture, they just went like this, they said no, it's the other way around.
ਸੱਚਵਾਨ ਇਸ਼ਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਆਸਨ ਤੇ
ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਸੀਗੇ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਹਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਐਂਡ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਸਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਾਗਿਰਦ ਬਣਿਆ, ਐਂਡ ਗੁਰਦਿੱਤ ਰਜੇਸ਼ ਮਾਲਵੀਆ ਜੀ ਦਾ. ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਹੱਥ ਰੱਖਾਇਆ, ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਫੜਨਾ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ, ਬਹਿਣਾ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ, ਉਹ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਕੀਤਾ. ਗੁਰਦਿੱਤ ਨੂੰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਹੱਥ ਰੱਖਾਇਆ ਤਬਲੇ 'ਤੇ. And then that was it, really. It lasted about 10 minutes, the whole thing. And we were official students. We're enrolled now. And then we were thinking, we didn't know what was going to happen next, kind of thing. And the next day, I remember it was at we turned up, I think my dad had spoken to our ustads and said, kinne baje leke aiye? And they said, sham nu inne baje se leke aajo. And we turned up and we walk into the Kala Kendar. And as soon as we walk in, the first thing I seen was my teacher disciplining someone else. Yeah. So the first thing, I walk into school and you just see whack. And I was like, Uh-oh.
Was it a chaped or like a soti
no,
involved?
it was a chaped, yeah.
Not Dil Rubber.
Yeah, no, yeah. It was a full proper top. Yeah. and like, you know, but you know, it was a rude awakening, you know, okay, we're in this kind of school and kitte paas gaye and but you know, like so I remember initially Ustad ji ne sanu jadon baithan nu kehna na, whatever he told me to do, I would not do anything but that, because I was like, you know, I didn't want to be in that position. Basically, what had happened had nothing to do with music. It's like totally unrelated. But that's the impression I was like given, and but you know, like I think, you know, later on I realized he's never going to get angry at me in that way, you know, unless I do something really stupid, and again, you know, it changed from doing things ke ustad ji gusse na ho jain to, you know, like cheez nu ustad ji changa lagde, this is what he likes. If I do something, then he likes it like this, you know. So it changed to that very quickly. But bahut pyar naal sanu sikhaya. Sade dona ne ustadan ne, they like, I would say, yeah, definitely they gave us preferential treatment, which is not a good thing, but you know, I'm really thankful that they did.
Did you have the same pressures from home about, you know, getting educated, getting a degree, getting a job?
At that age, and not nothing, you know. I was just turning 12, and so I didn't have that kind of, you know.
Get married at 12.
You know, there was no pressure like that. But in that, you know, like, so we used to go in the summer holidays, and so we were at school. No, as in our summer holidays were long, so I remember like we used to get out of school a little bit early, and I used to be a bit cringy as well. So my dad used to be saying, you know, so we're going away, but you know, what happens if we go there and get ill? What's the procedure? we doesn't know.
Forward planning, yeah, just in case.
Just in case. Yeah. So we did have a long holiday. Yeah. But I think my dad and my parents always thought of it that they will learn a lot more. Being in a different setting where they have to be more independent.
Do you think that's the same today? Do you need that time to be independent?
Definitely. Kartar's record is a lot better than what mine was in terms of being at school. But you know, I do think, you know, there's a lot of things. When we started going there, we are like just utna baithna, even something simple as that. Ke tanu je jaanch nahi aegi na. Like simple things ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਕੱਪੜੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲਾਈਦੇ ਪਾਈਦੇ ਨੇ, you know. I remember like the first Dora Kartar went with me, you know, very quickly he ran out kashare and banana, then he was looking at me, okay, you know, where's my kapde? I was like, you know, in Nick you need to start like worrying about it yourself, and it's only like before that the mom had like taken care of all of that for us. When we were there on our own, we had to start planning ahead. Okay, aa wale kurte paane, fir ai ton nu paana, fir you know, simple things. And it was very, we were in the deep end, you know, in that sense. Appa kala ke andar jadon thehre sige, you know, khoo cho pani kadna and like ishnan karna. When you're not used to that, and when you're just used to turning the tap and the garam pani is there, you know, it's something that you have to get. I remember like Bangalore first like a Vidix Mill in Bangalore in 93, which a year before we started learning like Sangeet, and Bangalore wasn't like it is today, you know, and it was like a proper forest. So you know, all kind of animals, but utthe tanu jana penda si jangal pani de vich. And I remember like my chacha ji took me, and he said, you know, like this, like fill the coconut with water and then go in the cornfields with the leaves are the longest, yeah. But, like, you know, he took us and like kind of explained how to do everything. And I just said to me, look, I just said, worked it out. We're here for 4 days. I just won't go for 4 days. I just said, you know, I won't eat much, and then, you know, I won't have to go. You know.
How did that work out?
On day 2, it was like, you know, yeah, that's it. Day 1, it's okay, kar le. Day 2, you know, bada mushkil siga. But then you have to muster the courage to, like, you know, face your fears. By the end of that, you know, we were happy. There were like creepy crawlies in our room and everything. We were very like, koi gal nahi, you know. But us to pehla bade aukha siga. We were like, you know, shahri sige. You know, we weren't used to being in that, you know, in that environment. But very quickly ho gaya. And you guys know, you've been on Dore, you know, it's not a hotel room that you get and like room service and everything. Utte tanu aap hi sara kuch manage karna penda. Halake seva bahut like karde ne, but you have to be very independent and very not planning ahead. You need to know where your things are.
So when you came back from your summer holidays, at that point you've got an ustad, and did that commitment then when you came back to the UK still continue?
Yeah. So I remember before we left Panesar that time, probably the first urge that I did ever to Sache Pasha Ji, and I said na कि मैं इंग्लैंड चल रही हूँ आपा वापस आना ते उत्थे जाके मैं किते कोलों सिखां, what shall I do in terms of talim to continue it. And straight away they said in it, my Masi's son, Rana Paji ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ they said ਉਹਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਸੱਚ ਭਾਈ ਬੜਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ, and I remember even ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ and I remember even before I was like musically initiated, I remember ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੱਪ ਪਾਣੀ running around and everything, ਏਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ, and ਇਹ ਬੈਠੇ ਨਾ ਦਿਲਰਬਾ ਵਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ, and whilst we were playing, I would never like stop playing. If I'm playing, you'd have to really like hold me and say "Baja hun," I would never stop. Una di dilruba di awaaz mere kan che pai, and I just suddenly said, okay, hang on, I'm not going to play. I'm just going to investigate ke awaaz kitho aa rahi. And I walked into the room and baithe baja rahe se, and I just sat down, and everyone was saying, come on, aap play kar rahe hain, and I said, nahi maine sun lende, and like and inna mitha hath ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਇੰਨਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਵਜਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. They had that effect on someone who was that naughty, to make them sit down. ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ. I haven't heard him play for a long time, but I'm sure if he pulls his dilruba ever, it will still be the same. And they ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ and Sache Pasha anyway straight away said it to me ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਸਿੱਖ, and that was great for me. And then ਗੁਰਦਿੱਤ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੀ Sache Pasha ਹੁਕਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜੀਤੇ ਭਾਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ like I think ਆਪ ਅਰਜ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਿਖਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ, and Sache Pasha ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਤਾਲੀਮ ਲੈ ਲਾ, ਬਾਅਦ ਚੋਂ ਫਿਰ ਪਿੰਕੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਕੋਲ Sache Pasha ਜੀ ਨੇ ਭੇਜਿਆ. But even like going to Rana Paji, we used to go like catch a coach, Bharat coaches, man. And from Southall, me and my Taji's son Kulwant, apa dono jande sige. So this is like 12, 13-year-old, like getting a coach, going to London. I would never send Kartar like just to like down the road even now, but like okha lagda to send him just down the road and go and do this and that. And apa used to go to a different city, aap manage karna sara. Uthe jaake fir there were no mobiles, so we're not sure कि किसी ने सानू लेना आना कि नहीं, पर obviously उत्थे जाके राणा पाजी सानू more often he used to come कई बारी राजू पाजी ने आके सानू उत्थों collect करना, घर आके प्रसादा पानी छक के फिर lesson करना, फिर थोड़ा जिहा break करके फिर ती उन्हां नाल बैठ के फिर इदां वापस आना. We used to do that, and then that used to be our time, in like Southall we used to walk on Broadway, उत्थों कुछ music की tape ले लेनी. Once a month we used to buy like a tape, कोई album ले लिया, कोई CDs with.
Who were you listening to at the time?
Anyone. Really, Shiv Kumar Sharma ji, Harip Sai Chaurasia ji, Ran Sar Mishra ji, bas eda dekh lena ke aflana aa gaya, and we used to say, okay, but because we didn't have the wide selection like we have today, we used to listen, not ragad than ina tape, listen to it continuously again and again. There's some recordings of Baljit Paji, Pinky Paji, which I can like verbatim. It's like a 90-minute recording. I can tell you exactly what they're going to do in like facial expressions wise, as well as what they're going to play. And in na jada nu matlab maan ditta. But vadiya lagda hunda siga too. And up until now, I still got that habit. I've got a lot of things on my my music playlist. Gurdit's got a lot more, but if I like listening to the same story again and concentrating on parts that I've not seen before. So I'll do that in movies as well. So I'll watch the movie and I'll watch like to a different like character and say, all right, let's see what's he doing when he's saying that. And you kind of like analyze along as you go on. And like, I've never seen it, and that I never saw his reaction to what that person said.
So you can rewatch movies.
I've watched like movies a lot of the times. Something, I can tell you like the whole of Jurassic Park. I can tell you exactly what happens.
The reason why I'm so shocked, because I was talking to Seb about this earlier, I forget. So Seb always asks at the end of the podcast, so what have you guys been watching or reading? And I've watched stuff over the week, but I've just forgotten. So I'm not paying attention like you are, obviously. But that's a skill in itself.
From a movie that I've watched, you can like say any dialogue, and I'll tell you straight away it's from that movie.
We should have tried that. We should have known that before.
Yeah. Actually, talking about memory, something I wanted to ask is then how you get to the point of wanting to learn Gurbani, Asa Diwar. When does that start? And learning Asa Diwar off by heart?
Because there's no I Gurbani back then.
Yeah, there wasn't. The Amrit Kirtan was the latest gadget. But that whole process was, like, ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ by year 2 in my learning, my progress at Bhai Kirpal Singh very quick hui. And in from second year onwards, and I started sitting with the Gushi Paji initially. I still remember the first time I sat with him, and it was like, my dad was always one of these people, and tu nahi bet, and to it was really nice in the sense that Gushi Paji ne sanu kadi rokya nahi कि तुसी साडे नाल ना बैठो, even though we didn't know much. So when I came back from India the first time, we had learned 3 rags. I'd started the 3rd rag. As in, I learned the names of the rags. I didn't know anything about the rag. As in, I'm still learning that same rag right now as well. Okay, so I hate when I say things like that, and then I think, no, rag is not just I learned a composition. Rag is it's taken me 4 years to know me. I don't even know myself fully that much yet. And how can I know a rag just because I know its name? Or just because I know a little bit about it. It takes you a long time. So I learned 3 rags, but as in very small amount.
The names.
Yeah, that's it. They, after a little while, my dad was like, "Tusi kirtan je baithya karo," and we was like, we don't know what they're gonna sing, what they're gonna play, kirtan baithi apa. And the first time, this was when the year the Jap Yog happened at Matuni's house. I don't know if you remember that far back. I don't know if he was born even. It was a long time ago.
Born 94. I think
94.
you started.
Yeah, he was alive then, yeah. So, but you wouldn't probably, I don't know if you would remember much about it. There's probably 95 or 96. Yeah, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਉਦੋਂ renovation ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ.
I was walking around without a pajama at that point. Probably not even walking.
You still walk around without a pajama.
With the cachetta on.
We're not sure about that.
Well, we've never picked your pajama up. You've got up to check. Yeah, so I remember Gushi Paji ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਬੈਠਾ ਨਾ, my dad was forcing us ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੈਠਿਆ ਕਰੋ, and my dad, I told you that, he would always be signaling it, play, because he probably heard कि मैं, I could pick up things like songs and things, and he would expect me to find it quite straightforward, but when you sat with your role models, वैसे ही बंदा फ्रीज जा हो जाता कि ਇਹਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਾਂ, and ਉੱਪਰੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਕਿ in a show ਕਿ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਰਾਗ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਦਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਤਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ. It was a foreign language, and I remember Gushi Paji stopped and said play, and and my dad was saying jab baja, and this is in the South Sangeet, and I just said, I just started rubbing my eye, and my dad said ki gal ho gayi, and I go, something's in my eye, and then he was like, chal fir whatever's in your eye, take it out, and I just whispered to my dad, I go, look, until the kirtan doesn't finish, it's not going to come out. I go, whatever's in there is not going to come out until this doesn't finish right now. Yeah.
This is on stage with the Sangeet.
This is on stage, yeah. So I just whispering to my dad, I go, I'm going to tell the kirtan nahi khatam hota. And my dad plays on, and the second day, to the day I remember, it was my dad made me listen to this Kirtan Pir Kar Nahi Aave, and I learnt a shan from that, and Gushi Paji didn't sing that shabad. My dad, I think I'd asked Gushi Paji to sing that shabad, but I don't know, for whatever reason he sang a different shabad. And then when he told me to play something, I just played that shan. It was totally inappropriate. It was even I knew while I was playing it, this doesn't sound right. Yeah. But anyways, what I was trying to get to, and we were just playing bits and bobs in the kirtan, but you stay around in that setting for long enough, you start learning, pata hi lag janda ki yaar aa cheez chalo yaar, I've heard this shabad before, and you kind of say Gushi Paji's jehde go to shabads or something, ratan janam khoya, kali koil to kite gun kali, sare vadiya shabad na bahut jehde pratan apa Sandarshan Singh Ji ke Jaan Singh Ji de sune ne, you kind of remember ki yeah, this one sounds like this, and you get थोड़ा पता बंदा कंफर्टेबल होने लग जाता है. एंड जो सतगुरु जी ने कीर्तन च सुनना आसा दी वारियां कीर्तन च भी सानू ना in that whole 2 hours या जेड़ा घंटा कीर्तन ना सानू we used to get a minute or 2 minutes to play a little piece, but that was golden time for us. सानू इदां लगदा सी कि जेड़ा सृष्टि दा साजनहार है ना, for that 1 minute he's fixed onto you, yeah, he's concentrating on what you're doing. And naturally, you want that 1 minute to go into 2 minutes and then into 3 minutes. And we used to think, the only way we can get that to increase now is either by getting really good at ਸੰਗੀਤ, but you know more so ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਰੀ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਆ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਐਂਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਿਠਾਇਆ ਵੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਜ਼ ਵਜਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਸਿਰਫ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ you know sometimes you just not get a space if you turned up a little bit late ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਗਈ and you were like you're important but not irreplaceable.
Or if you're a tabla player.
That's it, if you're a tabla player.
Tabla player, you just sit in the
players
front
were just falling off the stage. But so you know so ਸਾਡੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਉਦੋਂ ਆਈ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਹੈ. I remember just in that time I must have been 15 by this time, and in Gurdwara they started Punjabi classes, and there was a beginners class and a advanced class, and I went and sat in the beginners class, and I'd been like singing the kirtan for like a few years by then. And everyone thought I was pulling a prank, you know, just being the old what I was, you know, like just being naughty. You know, why you sat in the beginners class, you know, you do kirtan on the stage, and I was saying, "Nahi, mainu Punjabi padhni nahi aandi," and they wouldn't believe it. They would like takke naal mainu na advanced class ch bathata, and I was sitting there and go like, you know, they were like the people they're reading and right, and I was like, oh gosh, you know, na ek ghanta kidda how do I survive without being like totally found out ke ta bilkul na kamaiya yeah
uda oot
I went back to this again.
You got Nantari Morse code in the back.
Bahut aukha lagya mainu to get through that hour, and Gurudip was in the same position as me as well, by the way.
Advanced class.
No, he was in advanced class, but he sat in there out of like, you know, okay, I don't want to sit in the kids. I sat in the kids because that's where I thought I actually was, and Gurudip just, like, he was forced to sit in there, and then like, you know, we were sitting down, and we both like knew that we're gonna get found out if we don't learn it, and that they, you know kinni besti wali gall hai ki sanu udaya nahi aanda sahi tarah. And in a week we learned all of the like Punjabi da sare akhar apa, and like apa kar back we got a book and just went through it again and again and again and again. And so by the next time we were where a lot of the other students were, man. And but you know, like then Joan we started ek ta sade ਘਰ ਚ ਨਾ ਇਹ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ Khaj Bhai Kirpal na roj Asa Diwar Kirtan lagda siga, as in we listened to a recording, and we listened to the same recording a lot. It was 93 Bajit Paji and Kulla Paji doing Kirtan in Nairobi recording. ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਆਸਾ ਦੀ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਰਿਕਾਰਡ ਹੋਈ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਰੋਜ਼ ਹੀ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. So we knew where, you know, all the Ram Rajas were, we knew where all that, like, so I told you we rinsed like the certain recordings and ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸੀ ਕਿ, you know, Ram Raja ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਬੋਲ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, you know, we know that line, and Varya Vate vi, you know, and you know, so but I think, you know, like, so we started learning like a few phrases thode tanu aan lage because you listen to the same recording, especially if that shabad came up.
Body.
Yeah. And that's kuch cheezaਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਇਦਾਂ ਯਾਦ ਆਣ ਲੱਗੇ. Then I remember ਇਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ definitely ਸਿੱਖਣੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, you know, like we were picking things up, but it wasn't ਕਿ, you know, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕੰਠ ਕਦੋਂ ਹੋਣ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗੇ. that happened ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਲੈਸਟਰ 'ਚ ਆਸਾ ਦੀ ਵਾਰ ਸੀਗੀ ਤੇ ਦੌਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ some of the Ragis were AWOL or sick or something, and Kulla Ji were doing leading the VAR, and they were, I think main Gurdit te Gushi Paji pata nahi sige ke nahi, I can't remember now. He must have been there. He wouldn't have, like, can't think he wouldn't be there, but ਘੱਟ ਸੀਗੇ anyway. And ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਸੀਗੇ. Sadhguru Ji kind of at the end of that var said na ki tusi, you know, Gurbani vi sikho, padho vi na, tusi ga sakde hain, tusi padhde nahi. And that time, you know, that's when we started learning Asa Diwar, and initially my dad would write it all down for us in English.
Hanji.
And
the transliteration.
Transliteration Roman de vich na, ਪਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ, you know, like obviously ਪੂਰਾ ਤਾਂ ਥੋੜੀ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ. And ਜੋ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੀ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ we started like learning it together. And ਇੱਕ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ we were both together in it, me and Gurdit, and while we were walking to school we were like reading like this to each other, and he was always better than me, you know, in terms of remembering and focus even, you know, he still had that better than me at that age. And ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਆਉਣਾ ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਜੇ ਇਹ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਤੇ, you know, like I should, you know, like, I mean, he used to always like spur me ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਕਰਾਂ. It was like in a good way, you know.
It's always the tabla players.
ਮੇਰੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਨਾ ਤੇ, you know, like it's possible, and he's proving it's possible, and I need to like step up my game. And so एक दूजे दा साथ हो के ना ਆਪਾਂ थोड़ा बहुत दा सिखण लगे. फिर like from there to 2004 ਹੋਲਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਲੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀ. ਹੋਲੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੋਲਾ ਭੋਗ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ. all the Ragi are really tired after the hola. ਜ਼ੋਰ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੋਲੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਰੋਜ਼ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੀਰਤਨ every day and ਬਹਿਣਾ ਕਰਨਾ and everything. ਤੇ ਰਾਗੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਟਾਇਰਡ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ. and they said ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਤੋਂ ਰਾਗੀ ਆਏ ਨੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਇਹ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ. ਗੁਸ਼ੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਹੁਣੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪਿਤਾ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਸੀਗੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ. and such Pasha lets you go sometimes, like chalo koi mistake hogi te chalo, but such Pasha that day they were like, I'm going to correct every mistake you make, and literally every other word in every line of the Asadiyar they were correcting us. And jinnu mujwani changi tarah yaad na hove na, jinnu yaad bhi hove na, you kind of learn it in a ratta. So you'll say you almost have to go back to go forward, so if someone stops you in the flow of Anand Sahib especially, you've had it, literally it's a you got to say, oh gosh, oh no, I'm gonna have to start on Anand Sahib anymore, because if you get so there's certain slok de vich ta banda fer vi thoda ja kar landa. Chant de vich ya paudi de vich, if someone stops you, the tal's gone, you're thinking what beat where am I picking it up from, thought momentum started. And that day masai var puri hui, Sadhguru ji ne inna matlab they stopped it again and again and again. Some people got up from that very scarred thinking like okay appa na piche ho ke baijiye ya na padiye. And for me it was like all right, that's what they're expecting, that's what the expectation is, ke var shud honi chahiye hai. You can't just get through it and just say I kind of know the words. And Sache Pasha ji ne fir aap hukum kita si ke Master Darshan Singh ji kol matlab baitho, Master ji ne sanu saaryan nu fir na biਠਾਇਆ. var to baad hi they started going through a lot of things, and that time I ਰਿਹਾ pani cha mera udo ਵਿਆਹ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ. Then I stayed with Master ji every time, and ਕਾਫੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਸ਼ੁੱਧ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ. ਪਰ ਜਿਉਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਸਮਝਣ ਲੱਗੇ, the more we started like reading Gurbani and starting to understand the meaning, the more everything that we had heard in the past 20 years of our life started making more and more sense. Ke na waqai jo gallan likhiyan hoiyan ne na, they are all applicable. Sadhguru ji te puriyan tukdiyan ne. And jehda kende ne na ke pura Sadhgur, ਇਹ ਪੂਰਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਦੀ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ. and ਸਾਡਾ ਵਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ ਹੋਰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਪੈਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ, and ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਪੈਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ. It wasn't like boring, I got to learn this just like that. It became interesting ਹੋਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ, and Gurbani is very interesting.
So at that point when you started to have a connection with Gurbani and that philosophy, what you said that you started relating it to Sadhguru ji. Why was that, or how was that?
ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਝੱਖੜ ਚਾਕੀ ਮੀਂਹ ਵਰਸੈ ਪੀ ਗੁਰ ਦੇਖਣ ਜਾਈ, we used to kind of understand ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ actually ਕੀ feeling ਹੋਏਗੀ. When we used to be in England and the hola was happening in India, and you kind of thinking, yaar, how do I get there? ਕਿ ਮੈਂ like whatever you think ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਾ I need to somehow get there. And you kind of think ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਖਿੱਚ ਹੋਏਗੀ, to sell ਆਪਣਾ ਗਹਿਣੇ ਘਰ-ਬਾਰ ਸਾਰਾ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ, just not even a guarantee ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਪਰ you kind of start feeling ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਉਹੀ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਇੰਨੀ ਖਿੱਚ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਾ from all the problems that I've got financially or whatever, like trying to balance work life and everything, ਕਿ I'm like none of them seem important compared to the khich that Sadhguru ji's darshan waste. It just felt like that everything else is less important than ke ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ darshan karne. And you kind of realize ke jeda the school that you've always been in and the people you've always looked up to, you kind of thinking ha yaar mainu vi thoda ji ਉਹ ਵਾਲੀ feeling ਤਾਂ ਆਉਣ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੋ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ. And then you think ਕਿ ਮੋਹੇ ਰਹਿਣ ਨਾ ਵਿਹਾਵੇ, ਨੀਂਦ ਨਾ ਆਵੇ, And you kind of think, yaar, waki, you know, I can understand what that means. And I know what that feeling is of being restlessness. And kidna di raat nangdi, kinni okhi raat nangdi hai when you're away from the person that you want to like see all the time. And oh cheez nu banda holi realize karan lagda ki yaar waki kinni sahi gal cheez lagi hai. And oh kidan de sant mahapurush hoye ne who have wrote those things. And ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਿਰਤੀ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਚੰਗੀ ਉੱਚੀ ਤੇ ਸੁੱਚੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ you know they were ਮਤਲਬ ਇੱਕ ਪਲ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਵਿਛੜਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. So all those sort of things start making more sense. That's how I would say.
On that note, so you started learning from Ustad Surjit Singh Ji, but you went on to have other Ustads as well. And you stayed away from, obviously, home. You stayed away from even Panesar. So you stayed away from Sach Pasha Ji when you were...
Banaras, I think, right? Yeah. Banaras at one time.
Well, how does that fit into this timeline?
So, from other Ustads, again, all of this was always orchestrated by Sach Pasha Ji. And the only time I've ever wanted to learn of anyone else was probably from Ustad Baljit Singh Ji. But for whatever the reason, Sach Pasha Ji was really agya nahi deti. And everything else, Sach Pasha Ji hamesha, they said, inna karo sikhna, aa karna. ਜਦੋਂ ਬਨਾਰਸ ਵੀ ਗਿਆ ਨਾ still up to that point I was, you know, like Sangeet and like going to Bismillah Khan Ji wasn't what I wanted to do. You know, I didn't have the love for the music at that point. I still was doing it just because that's what Sadhguru Ji, I knew that would make them happy. Khushiyan waste. It was the easiest thing, you know, and maybe the thing that most students miss or don't have, like a reason to want to do music. You know, the reason for me was, you know, simple. I know that Sadhguru Ji nu changa lagda. So I didn't need any other motivation. That was good enough. Whereas if someone doesn't have that, they've got to do it because they like music. Yeah. And when you're starting off in music, you can't do what you're hearing other people doing. You know, so if you hear Amjad Ali Khan Sahab play Sarod and you say, okay, I want to learn Sarod. Your Sarod doesn't sound like Amjad Ali Khan's for many years. Yeah. Before you start hearing your Ustad in yourself, yeah, you're just sitting there thinking, I might have done the wrong thing. I might have picked up the wrong thing. I should have gone for Bansuri or something. I should have picked Babla. And as in, you're just there in that thing. And so I was not in that situation. I was in a situation, I'm just going to go wherever they send me. And jithe pe jaunge, main utte chal janga. Whatever you tell me to do, jidde naal tanu khushi mil jaye na, I would do that. So
and what was Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji's relationship like with Ustad Bismillah Khan Sahab?
Sach Pasha Ji ta har ek musician de naal, you know, I would say, you know, they you know, Sarab Class Amrat bina, you know, there was obviously a special reason why we say that about Sach Pasha Ji, na. Par ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਲ ਦੇ ਸਮਰਾਟ ਸੀਗੇ, ਹਿਰਦੇ ਸਮਰਾਟ, ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. ਐਂਡ you know, ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਬਣਾ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. ਬਿਸਮਿਲ੍ਲਾ ਖਾਨ ਜੀ even ਜਦੋਂ ਬਿਸਮਿਲ੍ਲਾ ਖਾਨ ਜੀ ਬਲਜੀਤ ਭਾਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਸਤਾਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਗਿਰਦੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਸੀਗੀ, it's very hard to get in the front door even to speak with like ਏਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ, ਹੈ ਨਾ. ਅਤੇ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਨਾਇਆ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ you know like ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ you know like little ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੰਗਾਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ, that they would like throw in a big thing, okay, I will only do it if you do this. I'll only teach him if you give this. I'll only do it if you do. And so for those are very trivial to Sadhguru Ji. You know, okay, chalo tu aa cheez mangda ta main de dena. Doesn't matter, no problem. I main tenu hor de dena. Yeah, oh kuch bhi nahi siga. You know, jeda, you know, someone who knows ke what that jewel is worth,
that value,
the value, and ode vaste it doesn't really matter if you're asking for a few pennies and things, and ate oh Sadhguru Ji nu us cheez da mol pata. And that's why they treated it as, you know, कि कुछ भी जो जिद्दां भी उस्ताद कहंदे ना आपां कर लाने. So बिस्मिल्लाह खान जी मैनू आप एक गल दसी. Again, my ustadi shagirdi is a long story, but if I cut it very short, Sadhguru Ji sent me in total 4 times to go to learn from them. This is before I became their student, and that's the first time I went to India. There was an excuse, like I can't see him, so I came back from India, came back to like normal life, and then came back a few months again. Sadhguru Ji had done all the planning with Bismillah Khan Ji ke danda karke, students are going to come from England, they're going to come and then they're going to come to you, and then you know this will happen. All the arrangements were made. Me, Gurbaksh Paji, Kulwant Paji, ਆਪਾਂ ਤਿੰਨ ਜਾਣੇ, second time ਆਪਾਂ ਤਿੰਨ ਜਾਣੇ ਗਏ. Took a train 2-day journey to Banaras, and ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੋਡੇ ਦੁਖਦੇ ਪਏ ਨੇ. And so I'm struggling I won't be able to sit like with the children.
That train journey probably wasn't comfortable either.
It wasn't comfortable, but there was a lot of us that train journey I went on, like Pinky Paji, Sonu Paji, Rajesh Paji, my dad, Gurbaksh's father, Kulwant. But Baba Munde sare katte sige. We had a laugh. Yeah, it was restless, but just because everyone was laughing all the way. Yeah, bahut badhiya siga, and got to see Banaras with Pinky Paji was a really good experience as well. They anyway वापस आ गए without, again, not even being able to see them. ਤੀਜੀ ਵਾਰੀ like ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ sent ਉਸਤਾਦ ਹਰਭਜਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ first as well. ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ in any life, ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਕੀਤਾ ਨਾਮਧਾਰੀ ਪੰਥ ਵਾਸਤੇ. ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ went to meet ਬਿਸਮਿਲ੍ਲਾ ਖਾਨ ਜੀ, ਸਾਰੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਮਨਾ ਕੇ ਕਿਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੇ ਦੂਰੋਂ ਆਉਣਾ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ and everything, ਕਿ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਸਿਰਫ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨ ਆਉਣਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ. ਹਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਭੇਜ ਦਿਓ, they were always like send them, yeah, definitely. And ਆਪਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਏ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਫਿਰ ਦਿੱਲੀੋਂ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਬਨਾਰਸ ਗਏ. And again, this journey and the train and everything, and ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਖਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ again said ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾ ਪੈਰ ਦੁਖਦੇ ਨੇ, and they said, look, ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਪੈਰਾਂ they're just want to touch your feet, and then if you're busy after that, doesn't matter. then ਨਹੀਂ, ਇਹ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ. We were standing outside and just said go back from there, and so with the fourth time such by said when fair tija ao, at that point everyone else kind of said GCSEs are happening, A levels or whatever was going on in that time in everyone else's life, they said yaar bada mushkil hai to keep on taking your time, utthe ja ke sara ja ke ehi sunna ke nahi hona. Par menu se ke chalo like my dad anyway was like such pasha ji ne kya hai te jana pena, but this time my dad went with me and we went by air.
Okay.
By air again.
More comfortable.
It took us 50 minutes.
Wow. Yeah. What was a 2-day journey?
It was a 2-day journey. ਤੇ 50 ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਗਏ. ਉੱਥੇ ਲੈਂਡ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਪਠਾਰੇ ਸੀਗੇ, we literally just walked inside and sat down. Just as we sat down, they said, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਖਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ are going to Delhi. They go, okay, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਖਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਚੱਲੇ ਨੇ. Yeah, and then so we just think, okay, so we have to get to the train station just as they're getting there, and hopefully we'll see them before they sit on their train, and at least we see them once in our life. I'll get to see Bismillah Khan Ji, and by the time we got there, we were thinking, if they are going to Delhi, what's the point of us being in Banaras now? I've seen it all anyway, and
been there, done
that so many times.
4 times.
As in, obviously, Banaras is a beautiful city, and there's so many things to do. But the reason we were going for, if that's not there, then it's pointless of us being there, and it's pointless of us having this return ticket by air. Upon train chi beh janne, and over the 2 days we'll find them in the train somewhere, and so we just said, okay, let's book a ticket. Cheti tatkal te ਆਪਾਂ book ਕੀਤੀ, emergency booking ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ, and we just got and just entered into the train, and we had a sleeper class this again, and ਜਿੰਨਾ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਬੈਠੇ ਹਾਂ, so it was me, my dad, and my dad had brought his friend with him, and 3 ਜਾਣੇ ਸੀਗੇ, and we sat like this, and ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ the seats in front of us were Bismillah Khan Ji and the whole entourage, so they were on the there was three levels, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੀਟਾਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ. So ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕਿਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਉਸਤਾਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਗਿਰਦੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ, and that's so for 2 days we were literally with them on that journey back to Delhi. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਆਪਣੇ history ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ, and ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਦੱਸਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਆਪ. You asked about the relationship, and ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਭੈਣੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ, ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ took them to the Gaushala, and Sach Pasha Ji ne they looked at one of the calves, and they just ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇਸ਼ਾਰਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਤਾਂ Sach Pasha Ji ਨੇ calf ਨੂੰ, and ਉਹੀ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਇਸ਼ਾਰਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ that calf came to them, ਅਤੇ Sach Pasha ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਗੁੜ ਉਹਦੇ ਮੂੰਹ 'ਚ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਸ਼ਾਰਾ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਵਾਪਸ ਚੱਲ ਜਾ. then they called another cow like that, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਇਸ਼ਾਰਾ ਕਰਨ ਉਹੀ ਆਵੇ, ਬੋਲ ਕੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਇਸ਼ਾਰਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਗਾਂ ਆਵੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ. and ਖਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ said ਨਾ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਜਾਨਵਰਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਅਸਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੇ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ 'ਤੇ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਅਸਰ ਹੋਏਗਾ, and ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਨਾ then they said ਨਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ we're not allowed to say in our religion, but they said if there is an avatar and is on the planet right now, Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji hai. Yeah, he said if there's such thing as a murshid or a peer or pagambar, then that's him. and you've got the ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ and so ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਨਾ ਮੈਂ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਸ਼ਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੀ
ਅੱਛਾ
and then ਸੱਚ ਪਾਸ਼ਾ said ਹੁਣ ਦੱਸੋ they said ਖਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਨਾਮਧਾਰੀ
Achha. So what did you say then?
Well, it was a rhetorical question, and they, you know, I was going to say, hang on a second.
I started writing an essay.
But they haven't got the 5 Ks.
ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮਜ਼ਹਬ ਦੀਆਂ ਲੀਕਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਮਿਟਾ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ
ਸੱਚ ਪਾਸ਼ਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਇਹੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਨਾ and through Sangeet I learned that as well ਨਾ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਕੋਈ ਵਧੀਆ ਸੁਰ ਲਾਉਂਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਅੱਛਾ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਨਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਮੱਲੋ ਮੱਲੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਨਿਕਲ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਮੂੰਹ ਚੋਂ we don't look at that time ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਮਜ਼ਹਬ ਦਾ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਮਤਲਬ you know what color of race he's from you know ਜੋ ਚੀਜ਼ ਅਸਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਨਾ that's ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਬੇਸੁਰਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ doesn't matter what they are as well ਉਹ ਬਸੁਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਸੁਰਾ ਹੀ ਕਹੋਗੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੁਰੀਲਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ you know just can't no matter what you say your heart will feel you know you don't need to say anything it will just come out anyway you know you learn how to you know focus on the right things you know to look at the अच्छाई की ने you know क्योंकि बुराइयां साडे आप च किन्नियां होंदियां ने
One of the great things about having a conversation with you is the analogies that you come up with in any situation. There's like one about wearing the right football, like if you support a football team, making sure that you wear the right colours for your football team.
How is Manchester United doing, by the way?
Man United, the future's bright. Look, it's been a bumpy ride, Hannah, and I was talking about this with Sach Pasha just a couple of days ago now, and I said, like, you know, I think I'm in a place now where if they win or lose, I know that I'll stick by them. I support them, but yeah, I support good football. If they lose against even Liverpool and Liverpool's played well, it doesn't hurt me now to say Liverpool's played well and you know I didn't play well. But yeah, there was a fanatic time in my life where I would support them and like regardless of whatever. But it was luckily at that time in my life they hardly used to lose, but as in. But yeah, obviously they're playing better, and I think with time and a bit more money and a bit more structure to it, then they'll start doing better.
That's a good bit of optimism there, huh?
There's a bit of hope, and I'm still, no matter how whatever situation I'm in, watching football, and that's the only time I actually get to sit with a mullah, and it was just out of a habit. Yeah, I've got to, you know, like.
Is that you're praying for the team?
I've always done that. Yeah, you know, like I always thought if I don't watch it, you know, they're not going to win. It's very superstitious, and and I've like accept when they don't play well, and I've always been like someone who's like very very switched on with like following them. Before the internet and before everything, there used to be teletext, if you remember that. Yeah, I remember all the pages. Sweere uth ke main pehla sare sports da padda hunna siga. And I used to read like football ch ki ho reha, snooker ch ki ho reha. I used to follow Stephen Hendry, and like I and cricket ch ki ho reha, and all of these like things I would like try to draw inspiration of, you know. Okay, they play in a certain way. They have certain kind of core values. And I used to try to think, those are the sort of core values that I want to somehow bring into my life. Never got there, but, you know.
But I think discipline and routine is very similar to the way what you've put into music anyway.
Not only that you know, that I say again and again, manbirti ne ekagar karan wala, that thing, I found that, you know, in anything you do in sport or anything, you know, when you're playing badminton, when the shuttle is coming towards you, at that time, you're not thinking of Amerikar te ki ho reha, or you know what's Ronald gonna say if I don't like I haven't done this thing, or Nikki can, as in, you know, like you're not thinking about anything else. You're just focused on that one shuttle, and main nu shuttle nu idda marna, and I want to send it there, and you're very in the moment. You're thinking of like agge ya piche. That is a very good place to be in, you know, just to be in the present, and I think that through sport, it's very like very like calming to be in that position, almost therapeutic, you know. And I think that people, when they say, you know, like if you do an activity, you feel like your stress levels going low, I think it's because of that, because, you know, you're not thinking about so many things at the same time. You're only thinking about the simple thing. Or in a team sport like football, you know, you learn how to, as a team, progress forward, you know, and as a team like lose and win together.
Team sports, it's the same as Kirtan, right? Everyone has to do their bit to sort of...
Kirtan de vich, and I suppose maybe I realized it more through Western music, you know, in a big 60-piece orchestra or something, you know. There's someone who's playing a massive drum and there's someone who's just got that little triangle thing, but or sare piece de vich na without that triangle adhura hai, you know, like that you know, it has a place in there. And in Kirtan, you got to understand where your place is. You know, everyone's going to be Kullaji or Sonu Paji or Balwant Paji, you know, and you can't have 4 of them all doing that thing at the same time. There's a place for everyone, and everyone has to kind of understand. It used to be a lot easier in Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji's time, in the sense that they were the conductor, you know, where they were actually conducting the Kirtan, so they would like almost ishare naal say, hun tu baja, hun tu rok, hun tu idna ga, tu idna gar. And oh cheez is something that I kind of appreciate more now. But सारा नु वो जगह हुंदी है. Everyone's got an important role. You can't say किसी दा बड़ा छोटा है. It's important.
We put out the post that we're going to be recording a session, and the first couple of questions, maybe 5 or 6 of them, were, can we learn from you? So how can people get in touch with you to learn and become students?
Like, I've always taken back, you know, I get that a lot, and I've said Bhai Kirpal karke. But right now I'm in a place where there's just not enough hours in the day. You know, I'd love to do more, and my students matter to me a lot. You know, like, and I say that to all my students, and when I'm taking you on as a student, I'm not just like thinking, okay, I've got a slot to fill, I'll put in another student there. I'm kind of investing my life into them, you know, as well. And my time spent with them is not just, okay, it's not it's
countdown.
You know, it's not just that. I really want their life to change through music, like it has done for mine. You know, I can really find there's a big change in my the way I view things, the way I approach things.
Send them on that Banaras train.
Yeah, really. You know, but that whole thing, that is character building, and so, you know, for me, I kind of have to really like pick and choose almost. You know, okay, like, if I'm going to take someone on, have I got the capacity to like give them that time that my teachers gave me? Because, you know, Vidya, Sare Guru Vidya dende ne, you know, and they give you really good, that someone can tell you the best palta, the best composition, you know, but it's the time and everything else they give you. Most of the things I've learned, I would say, from my ustads were when there were no instruments in the room. You know, when I was just sitting in this Sangat and seeing how, like, their randomest conversation would turn into music, and then from music would turn into Sadhguru Ji or into God or whatever, and through that, that's exactly what I want to teach my students. Not just like you learn, you know, you learn this gat and you go away, practice and play on the stage, and then you learn the next one. You know, I want them to see how, you know, through music it should change the way you see, you know, the way you live your life. And so, yeah, I'd love to take on more students. It's just, I'm in a place right now where, A, I'm thinking, jede already sikh rahe ne wo sikh jan. Yeah, and B, I've got kids. I need to spend some time with them as well. I think that's the biggest like balancing thing that I've got to weigh up. And I've got like my own children that, you know, I don't get time to teach them a lot myself, and you know, they do need teaching.
And is that the reason why the Sangeet camps are so important, where they're taken out from like the daily routine of life, and does that become a conduit? Is there an experience that you can share that, you know, that's been transformative?
Yeah, you know, again, whenever we do these sort of camps, that is the best thing. Spending time in an informal setting with your teacher, it's the best. I remember the times I used to turn up at Sujit Badi's house, and he used to have his hair open and just a tarty or something, and you know, I used to, like, he was fully relaxed, I'm fully relaxed, you know, as I can be, and you kind of start understanding, you know, ਉਹਨਾਂ the music bare, ਉਹਨਾਂ the philosophy bare through music. And it's not with only Ustad Sujit Singh Ji, you know, with anyone, you know, anyone I've spent time with, you see, you know, in music nu kis tarah, how they're living music, you know, how is it, you know, like, it's not something that they just do for this many hours, like you clock in and out of work. It's not just that. It's not that feeling, you know. And you know, it's kind of 24 घंटे चलता ही रहता है.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, I miss those phone calls from Ustad Gurdev Singh Ji at 6 o'clock in the morning saying, Aagat Suni. He just puts it on for half an hour and that is exactly what it is.
Those sort of conversations, you know, like Sarab said, I mean, we've all had that. A lot of us have had that call from Ustad Gurdev Singh Ji. And, you know, like, it could just be about reminiscing even. And even that in itself, I remember once, we was ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ in Leicester, and I took Kartar with me, and I said, look, you know, jada 9 o'clock we'll be out, and you've got school tomorrow, and ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਚੱਲ ਪਈਆਂ ਤੇ ਚਲਦੀਆਂ ਹੀ ਰਹੀਆਂ 12 ਵਜ ਗਏ 1 ਵਜ ਗਏ ਚਲਦੀਆਂ ਹੀ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ, you know, it was a really good musician we were talking to, and you know, ਗੱਲਾਂ ਚੱਲਦੀਆਂ ਹੀ ਰਹੀਆਂ I could tell Kartar's not getting a gist of what anyone's saying, and you know, like, you know, I totally understand that point because I've been there as well, and but then afterwards he goes like, you know, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ 9 ਵਜੇ and 1 ਵਜ ਗਏ ਨੇ, I've got school, and I go, look, you know, but Avi, this is a big lesson, you know, how to be patient. ਜਦੋਂ ਬਹਿਣਾ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਆ, ਕਰਨਾ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ, all of this is teaching, and it's invaluable, and ਕਿ having that patience. ਅੱਜਕੱਲ we haven't got that patience. That patience needs to be developed, you know. ਜਦੋਂ ਬੱਚਾ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਯਾਰ I can't do it, ਯਾਰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ, and ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇਣਾ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੈਠ ਹਾਲੇ, like ਬੈਠਣਾ ਹੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਬੜਾ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ. And through that then you start, you know, when you develop that ability to be able to do that, ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ progression ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ.
What is your advice to beginners who are starting on the journey of Sangeet?
Just do as your teacher says. The biggest advice I would say to them, Anna, is first ask yourself, why do you want to do it? You know, if it's, I know, like most parents, a lot of the times I've got to manage expectations of the parents rather than the children. If you're a beginner and you're 25, it's a bit easier to have the conversation with that person. When someone's saying, I want my kids to learn, I know they're saying, out of a good place. But usually if you drill down, then they're saying, you know, flane bande ne bacche ne kirtan kita, I want my kids to do as well. It's not a bad thing, but you want ke o kirtan Gurbani naal ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੀਵਨ change ਹੋਵੇ. That's what you want. That's really what you want. You don't want them to become, it's good if they do, but you know, you don't really care if they become, you know, like Amjad Ali Khan or Shiv Kumar Sharma, you know. It's you're kind of wanting that music enriches their life somehow. That's what you should be wanting, and for that you need to you need to get them to understand it's not going to be the third lesson we're learning Asa Diwar. You know, and that Mebori that you've heard like someone do, and that's what happens, you know. So they say, okay, we learnt Sari Gama Padanisa today, and so when are we starting on the good stuff? You know, you know, and it's really hard, you know, because you don't want to shoot them down. You know, you want them, obviously they're interested, they're keen, but you want to kind of say to them, you know, sing that. Let's, you know, there's so much more things to do. And it's really hard when, you know, especially when people are not used to learning in that way, Guru Shish Parampara way. It's very hard having the conversation with someone who's not used to having that, you know, like, we're lucky, you know, कि आपा सतगुरु जी नाल हमेशा ये रिश्ता रहा साडे नाल. You know, we understand कि जो गुरु ये कहंदा सन करना पैना, हुन सिर मत्था टेकता हुन करना पैना. You know, you can't just say कि नहीं हुन नहीं, and like, you know, जिथे तुसी हाँ करती रही है, हुन जिद्दां वो कहंदा, you have to do it. And ते most people haven't had that like background, and so ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਬੜੇ calmly ਜਾਂ manage ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ that situation, and you want someone to be as patient with you and like have that faith in you ke yaar jithe mainu leke jana chahna let me stick the course. A lot of the times ki hunda ki hai ke, you know, like something comes like A levels aage, GCSEs aage, whatever, vyah ho gaya, that's another one. You know, and like, you know,
what happens after VR? So they're not committed anymore, or
well, you know, the priorities change.
Committed to someone else.
You know,
committed to somebody else.
Tanu pata hi hai, tanu sara. But it becomes harder and harder to like have that as your priority in your schedule, and it's like when they talk about like spending cuts. The first thing that gets like cut is the arts. Yeah, so it's the same thing in your life, really. You know, when there's something important, you'll say, all right, practice, I'll cut that out. you know, and like the things that you think are not important are the things that are important, because what you're living for, and are you living just to work, and you know, like you're actually living to, you know, to actually have a meaningful and experienceful life, and ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੰਗ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਹੀ ਆਉਣਾ, and through these kind of arts, not through only sangeet, through any informal, that's what's going to enrich your life. So if you take that, if you cut that out, then what are you trying to fill it with? You know, more work, more bills and admin, and you know, I know they're important. I know you have to do them, and like, you know, but that's why I always try to say to someone, and learn how to make sure you're having a blissful life, not just you know, I've got lots of work, I'm very busy, and that kind of life, you know.
That Guru Shishya Parampara of having full faith in your Guru, does that come from knowing that they want the best from you? They want you to succeed. How does somebody who's never experienced that Guru-Sikh relationship, how do they relate to that?
It's very difficult to relate to it, Anna, because, you know, in the Western education, we've always just been put onto the next level, regardless if we've understood what we were doing anyway. Someone doesn't hold you into year 3 for another year because you haven't learned anything. You know, they'll say, okay, you're year 4 now, and then you're year 5. So it's very hard to them to say, you know, like, Halit tu sare ka main kar, we're not going to do Padani say it. You know, you know, it's very hard to make them understand it. But, you know, it is what the fundamental thing is. Then there's so many examples you have to try to give, and you're essentially trying to mold them, Anna. And that's why, you know, we always say it's better to learn when you're younger. It's not impossible to learn when you're older, but when you're older, you've been molded.
A bit more rigid in your ways.
So ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ already mold ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਤੇ remold ਕਰਨਾ ਤੇ ਟੁੱਟਣ ਦਾ ਡਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ, and you have to be, you know, really, really skillful in trying to remold that. That's something that's already been molded, and
like a clay pot that's already been in through the heat.
See, you got better examples than I have.
Okay, well, let's go for another question. This one's going to be a quick one, but do you wear barna all the time?
Not when I play football.
Okay, not when you play.
That's true, actually. But actually, you're still very good. Like, so your nishana, Bali's nishana at goal, you know where you want to shoot it, and it will go in that exact spot. Yeah. Top left, top right, bottom right.
I thought you were talking about his kashara.
Yeah. I was like, you're on point, Bana.
Another question we've got here is, it's a long one, but it's an interesting question. Why is there a necessity to include outside sources like Bollywood and Qawwali as done in Asa Diwar and Shabads?
There's not a necessity. I mean, I think for me, again, you know, like when the early part of when I was learning, I didn't understand what, like, nobody used to say, you know, we're switching over to Ahir Paro. Yeah. You know, I used to hear that and I used to think, okay, I don't even know what surah these are. Yeah, but I used to think, okay, that sounds similar to Al Billa Sajanayori because I've heard that. And then I used to think, okay, there's Puchuna kaise maine ran betai. That's the one. I used to think, okay, yeah, that sounds similar to that. And because I've heard that, I could use like the influences from that to think, okay, this is the rags, especially those type of songs that I've just mentioned to you. You know, they're not the tapu tapu like type of songs that you're talking about, Anna. Jab bhi main ladki dekhu mera dil deewana bol, like, but you know, they like those were, you know, very like enriched like compositions within themselves, and so, you know, semi-classical kailo, but that helped me sort of bridge that gap, you know, between not knowing something and then hearing something that you're familiar with, and then drawing inspiration from that to kind of fill the gaps.
I feel that this question's coming from an angle of, we only must do Purat and Kirtan and everything must be old, and I don't think that's necessarily, I mean, we're going to talk about this in the future, but I think that there doesn't need to be that gutterness.
No, there shouldn't be that. You know, there are so many different styles and you can appreciate them, you know, as soon as you start learning them. Tumri haga, ghazal haga, yani, you know, there's Vada Khyal, Chota Khyal, Qawwali, you know, Trupad, Tamar, kinne style ne, you know, and kinne tarah de different ways of expression really, है ना. Sare hi change ne, and the more you learn and the more you learn about them, you kind of realize the sort of, you know, there's not one type of river. You know, there's fast flowing rivers, and there's one that you know, ebb and flow, and there's one that have like torrents and like waterfalls and things. Like you know, essentially they're all flowing, kinda. They're all carrying water from one side to the other.
When's your analogy book coming out?
Me and Hassan will come here together.
The next question is, how do we be consistent when doing riyaz and start loving our own voice?
The riyaz thing, Anna. Initially, I was really good at riyaz, and I always tell my students, you know, apna riyaz karo, you know, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਚੰਗੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗੇਗੀ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ in the beginning, you know, ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ. There are some people you listen to them naturally in sur, and you know, but everything needs to be, you know, worked on. And I suppose when you hear almost, you know, like what you're trying to, you know, the thing that you're listening to, so whether that's recording or whether that's your ustad, when you hear that through your own music, you know, fir tanu us cheez di satisfaction aan lagdi hai. Until then lage raho, you know, it can take a long time. It can take a long time. And there was a phrase I heard Baljeet Paji play, you know, in terms of notes, and if I simplified it, and it was Ni da pa da ma pa da sa da pa. But the balance that they played it in, it took me hundreds, thousands, maybe more than that, you know, like times to play it before I started, like before I was satisfied. I think that's a good thing to have, you know, if you're never satisfied, if you're not one of those people who pat yourself on the back and said, yeah, I did good today, you know, yeah, aaj main kar liya, you know, thoda ja kar liya, it's good workout, you know. If you're not if you're not one of those sort of people, and then eventually then ek time aayega when you think, yeah, I couldn't tell the difference between when I played it and when I heard it, and I think when you start getting to that, then maybe that's a good indication. But even then, people who get to that realize there's no time to feel happy about anything, because there's just another mountain ahead, you know. It's never ending.
It's like that Sakhi that Sachapasha Ji mentions in the Updesh about transcends, and ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਰਾਗ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦਾ, and Sachapasha does that action of they put that talwar in the water and ਕਿ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਤਿਵਕੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ ਬਸ ਬਾਕੀ ਸਮੁੰਦਰ ਉੱਤੇ
ਦਰਿਆ ਵਗਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨਾ. So you know, like when someone gets to that point, Kartar ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, you know, like how long do I need to practice, you know, what do I need to, like, you know that I've started getting good. And I go, when you're no longer looking at the clock, you know, you're doing it because I've said, or your teacher said ਘੰਟਾ ਕਰ riyaz. When you're no longer looking ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਘੰਟਾ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਗਿਆ, you know, you're only doing it. In the house, people have to tell me bas kar yaar. You know, it's like, you know, because tanu apni, you know, apni awaaz naal tanu, you know, like oh jo tode guru da sangeet hai na, tanu apne de vich sunan, you can start hearing it in yourself. Who wants to switch that off? You know, if you're hearing and I'm not talking about myself here, if you're hearing Sadhguruji through your own voice, who wants to switch that off? And you'd want to hear it as much as you would say ke hui jave. Balwant Paji, like you spend a little bit of time with them, you know, jadon kirtan karte, you know, like you hear Sadhguruji's teaching through their music, and so I don't get bored of it anyway.
I think one final question is, and I'm specifically thinking of Pariog last year. The question is, what challenges have you faced in your life, and how did you overcome them?
You know, well, the car thing is very, very straightforward, and some guy tried to. I mean, it was in Handsworth, so it's not unexpected. Someone
just talking about Handsworth, right? So today, twice, we're driving through Handsworth, and we've nearly had 2 major accidents.
Yeah, people drive here, you know, like, and then, like, you know, it happens. That sort of thing happens anywhere. But you know, as in, but Handsworth, which incident hoya siga, and someone tried to take the car, and they. But you know, it happened kind of thing before the Jap Pariog Ardas, and mera man ch se ki apa Ardas te pahunchna hai te. I remember getting there and like trying to fight my natural instinct to feel angry at the people who had attempted to take the car. Like I was trying to, you hear things that Sach Pasha Ji say, and ke us vele, this is something that's happened. It's an event that's occurred in your life, and you can either just keep on replaying it again and again and stay in that negative mind frame, or you can try to like overcome it somehow. And ਮੇਰੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਲਾਈਕ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਧ ਸਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ ਇੰਨਾ ਜਿਗਰਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ that they could like take that like happening. ਪਤਾ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਫਿਰ ਕਿ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਾਈਕ ਕੋਈ ਗਲਤੀ ਕਰ ਲਈ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਪੈਸਾ ਮਾਰ ਲਿਆ or something done something wrong. ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਵੀ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, and before they've even asked for forgiveness ਉਹ ਮਾਫ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ. ਤਾਂ how do you get to that? ਤੇ like ਮੇਰੇ ਵਾਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ. I don't think I could ever like I don't know anywhere near that. ਪਰ ਇਹ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਹੈ. And I said for me like I said, once you start becoming curious in something and that's what you just need to stay curious for long enough to kind of like the answer will reveal itself to you. And ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ like hopefully ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੇਗਾ how to do it, but still right now wherever he is.
I think that thought process is really important, and to even have that thought in your mind, because I remember being in that hall and again trying to concentrate, and then hearing the car alarm, and then like a hustle bustle, and Pali sort of just shot out the hall. And this is like, very early in the morning, and you're thinking to yourself, everything okay? And then like, well, forget all that, because that's a distraction. Let me get back to my focus. And there was only like 2-3 days after when I sort of thought to myself, let me ask, ki hoya, Hana? And then you telling me, I was thinking, when I'm sat in that asali bar, or in that Naam Simran, my attention and focus needs to be here. I need to forget everything else. And then when you said, how do I forgive them? I was like, whoa, there's people thinking like that. Because somebody is actively trying or targeting an investment that you have, that's your livelihood, because you use that car to get about to students and all these places.
Or drove it here today.
Yeah, but having that thought in your mind, how do I forgive that person? That's incredible.
Because, I mean, jad tak tusi nahi karde hain, aukha kaun ho reha? The people who attempted it, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਕੋਈ ਫਰਕ ਪੈ ਰਿਹਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਔਖੇ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਆ. And really, the way to overcome that is to get past that, and udo hi hona when you kind of accept ke jo hoya, and like really you got to think, je main nahi aukha hona chahta, if I want to alleviate that thing, I know what do I have to do. Again, it's like it's not like my strategy, it's Sadhguru ji di strategy.
One thing I've understood, the importance of this path, I think what we're trying to get at is that it's a way to become easy within your life. And I think that's an element of it, right? कि मज़हब दा मतलब ही है कि सौखे हो जाओ.
Wow.
Easy in your life, but also remember what we talked about: low self-esteem. So there's one way of being humble is you completely knock everything out of yourself, and then you drop your esteem.
There's a balance between the two. Pandit ji used to say in the Diwan कि पुराने Sikh ऐदां दे हुंदे सी, that one Sikh has sat on their place within their camp, and they would get up from what they considered their spot, and another Sikh would come and sit in that spot, and the other Sikh would come and they would have that anak, why have you sat in my spot, and all opposites lad pende si. They didn't used to fight about these major things we fight about. They used to fight over these little things. Pyar si bahut. You can only fight about these kind of things jithe pyar hai. And koi hor sadhu aake jehda siana si, they would come and say tusi kyo lad rahe hain, 4 दिन ਦਾ ਖੇਡ ਆ, ਛੱਡੋ, ਤੇ ਦੋਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੈਠੋ, ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੈਠੋ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਰ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਤੋਂ ਲੰਘ ਕੇ, like what you're saying, that you need to go through the process where you have the anak, then you need to go through the process of ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਸੌਖੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਓ.
It's a it's a lifelong process, but you need to, the biggest thing is you need to have that self awareness. I just ਆਸਨ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਸਟੇਜ ਤੇ ਬੈਠਣ ਲੱਗਾ, I used to usually sit on the right hand side next to the ਆਸਨ. ਕਿੰਨੇ ਸਾਲ ਇਦਾਂ ਬੈਠਾ ਰਿਹਾ, and ਜੇ ਕਦੀ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਲੇਟ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, someone else was sitting there, but like it was like, where do I sit now? It's like like these little thought processes come in your mind, and like meri jagah kehdi hai, and then when you're trying to say na ke ਮੇਰੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ like there's no like ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਨੇ ਹਨਾ ਤੇ like ਤੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ in that really ਹਨਾ ਤੇ ਜੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਕੋਈ ਮਿਲ ਵੀ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ like ਉਹ ਉਹਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ and ਇੱਕ ਦੂਏ ਚੜ੍ਹਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੌਣ ਜਾਣੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਜੀਓ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਛ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ but not in that way ਕਿ like you're saying you beat yourself up in that negative way but in the sense ਕਿ you realize actually ਜਿਹਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੋਈ ਮੇਰੀ ਕੋਈ ਵਾਵਾ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਮੇਰੀ ਵਾਵਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਤੁਕ ਆ ਜਲਦਰ ਸੰਗਮ ਕੈ ਅਫਲ ਸੇਂਬਲ ਦਰਮ ਚੰਦਨ ਸੁਗੰਧ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਮੈਂ ਲਗਾ ਰਹੋ they're saying ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਚੰਦਨ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟਰੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਨਾ they've obviously got a fragrance to it and the sandalwood fragrance ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੰਬਲ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦਰਖਤ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੋਈ ਫ੍ਰੈਗਰੈਂਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਫਲ ਫਿੱਕੇ ਫੁੱਲ ਬਕ ਕੇ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕੰਮ ਨਾ ਆਵੇ ਪਤ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਕੰਮਾ ਪਰ ਜੇ ਉਹ ਚੰਦਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉੱਗ ਜਾਵੇ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੰਦਨ ਦੀ ਸੁਗੰਧ ਆ ਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ people and if someone starts saying ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਯਾਰ that fragrance ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਮੇਰੀ ਆ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਮੇਰੀ fragrance ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਉਹਦੀ ਆ the thing that people are liking ਹੈ ਨਾ is like everything that you're hearing or anything ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਆ and as soon as you kind of realize that ਯਾਰ ਕਿ then you say ਮੈਂ ਕਾਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਘਰ ਮਤਲਬ ਮੈਂ why am I getting finding it really hard to not sit somewhere else ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਇਸੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਮੇਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸੀਗੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਕੋਈ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਲੈ ਗਿਆ ਸਮਥਿੰਗ ਐਂਡ ਯੂ ਥਿੰਕ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਆ ਐਜ਼ ਇਨ ਇਟ ਸੇਜ਼ ਇਟਸ ਨਾਟ ਮਾਈਨ ਤੇ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਲਾਈਕ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਤਾਂ ਇਟਸ ਗੁੱਡ ਇਨਫ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਭ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਹੀ ਆ there's nothing else to it
I think a constant theme throughout this whole conversation has been anchored to Satguru Ji's kirpa. And the way that works, sometimes we don't see it or appreciate it, but it's only after the fact when you reflect and having that self-awareness does it come to light.
I would say it takes a long time for you to kind of realize these things, but honestly, you started this whole podcast by saying a lot of things about me. Every time you said anything about me, it really made me want to cringe, because I know, really I know कि आ चीज़ां सारियां मेरियां नहीं हैं. Like you're telling me about how good I am or about this and things I've done influenced or been a role model, and none of that. It's all plagiarized things that I've done, like Sadhguru stole their lines and even the mannerisms, it's all again the time spent with them, ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੰਦਾ just regurgitating what you've kind of been around. And I've told you a few things ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਚੰਗੀਆਂ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ, but they're all things that I've heard from Sach Pasha Ji.
Maybe that's a template within Sikh philosophy, in the sense that when after Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji, Sadhguru Angad Dev Ji became the second Nanak, and then there's that same template with Sadhguru Tegh Bahadur Ji.
The whole thing is advait hona na, as in ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦਵੈਸ਼ ਆ ਉਹ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ and realize ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੂੰ ਹੀ ਆ and ਜਿਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਆਪਾਂ like we can't see the difference, when you just see ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੂੰ ਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਹੈ I think like ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਨਾਨਕ ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ you ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ says ਨਾ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਬਣ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਮੂਰਤ ਭਗਵਾਨ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ like ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਦੱਸੇ ਹੋਏ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲੀ ਜਾਵੇ ਉਸ ਰਸਤੇ ਤੇ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਉਹ that line ਮਿਟ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ between me and you.
ਤੂੰ ਕਰਤਾ ਤੂੰ ਹੁਆ
ਮੁਝ ਮੈਂ ਰਹਾ ਹੂੰ है ना
हर जन दो
एक है
विचार कछ ना
बाकी है ना लाइक के जब हम होते तब तू नहीं अब तू ही मैं नहीं है ना पर ਉਹ ਮੈਂ ਮਿਟਾਣੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੀ ਮਿਟਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਐਂਡ ਉਹਦੇ ਮਿਟਾਇਆ ਹੀ ਉਹ ਮਿਟਦੀ ਆ a guru ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਰੋਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ in that and like if I look in my life and really as my ustads ever said कि शाबाश तू बहुत बढ़िया बजाया yeah but I realized that's their role and that's what they like Sangeet jehda this is like food for the gods and it's not to be, you know, like when mortals trying to have that same food, ਉਹ ਪਚਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਛੇਤੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਚਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਨਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਵਾਲੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ, ਸੇਵਾ ਜਾਂ ਭਾਂਡੇ ਮਾਂਜ, ਜਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਆਹ ਕਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕਰ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਕਹੇ 'ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੱਲੀ ਜਾਓਗੇ ਨਾ, he'll bring you, he'll earth you, and he'll bring you back to the floor and say let the energy pass through you, ਅੰਦਰ ਨਾ ਰੱਖ. ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟ ਇਜ਼, ਇਹ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਵੀ ਸਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ. ਐਂਡ ਯੂ ਨੋ these are all ways of like pushing that, you know, that energy, letting it flow through you rather than letting it build up in your head and saying, ah, yeah, ਬਾਕੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਯਾਰ, ਸਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ.
When Sant Yadvinder Singh Ji came to the UK last, and ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ I spent all this time learning Sanskrit and learning how to do katha, going through this whole process, years of education, and the first ever katha that they did, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ you know, I did a good job. And their ਪਿਤਾ ਜੀ Sant Harbhajan Singh Ji, Sant Khanduwaliya, they said, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਮਤਲਬ same thing that you're saying, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸ਼ਾਬਾਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅੱਜ ਆਜਾ ਪੁੱਤ, ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਗਊਸ਼ਾਲਾ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਗਊ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ. And they're thinking to themselves ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇੰਨੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਕਥਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਗੋਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੋਂ ਚੁਕਾਉਂਗੇ. ਪਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ that was a learning process ਕਿ
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਚਾਲ ਤੋਂ, ਸਾਡੇ ਚਿਹਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਹਨਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ.
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ.
ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਪਤਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਉਹ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਨੰਗਿਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆਪ, ਹੈ ਨਾ. And you kind of, you know, that's why Sangeet is one way, but that's why I think it's such a good way to learn like Sikhi through Sangeet, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਧਾਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ. ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਕਹੇ 'ਤੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਨਾ ਆਪਣੀ ਹਉਮੈ ਨੂੰ ਤਿਆਗਣੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਆ. When someone comes to your lesson saying, I know this rag, I know that rag, you know, and you just say, yeah, okay, let's put aside what you know.
You know the name.
Yeah. and then you kind of say to them, okay, all right, shuru te tu gege te gege nana vajana, and don't look at dir yet. Don't even think about it yet. And ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਆ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਕਰ, you know, ਉਹ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਧਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ, you know, and then ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰਗੜਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ again and again, and or ragड़ ke na, then you kind of take it out of them, so you defeat the haminu anda, get that thing out. As soon as you got that out, now your cup is empty. Hun ਉਹਦੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵਸਤੂ ਅੰਦਰ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੈ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ, there's space for something else to go in there now, ਹਨਾ. ਤੇ ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਜੇ ਰਗੜੀ ਜਾਓ ਨਾ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਗਨੇਟ ਨੂੰ ਜੋੜੀ ਜਾਓ ਤੇ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਉਹ ਮੈਗਨੇਟਿਜ਼ਮ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਣ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ, you know. But you know, before it's just a block of whatever metal ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਆਪ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰਗੜ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਮੈਗਨੇਟਿਜ਼ਮ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ. ਅਤੇ ਇਹੀ you know is ਇੱਕ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, you know, like ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਕਹੇ 'ਤੇ ਨਾ ਜਸਟ ਉੱਠਦਾ ਬੈਠਦਾ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਪਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ, ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਆਹ ਵਾਲਾ ਬਾਣੀਆਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ. ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਦਾ ਐਨੀ ਆਫ ਦੀਜ਼, ਹੈ ਨਾ. ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਸੱਚਮੁੱਚ ਧਿਆ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਉੱਠਦਾ, ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਦਾ, ਤੇਰੇ ਦੱਸੇ ਹੋਏ ਮੈਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਜੀਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ. You see them, you know, ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਹਿਜੇ they go through life, you know, even through the ups and downs, they're you know, you know, very in equilibrium, you know, they're not, you know, ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸੁੱਖ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਫੁੱਲਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਦੁੱਖ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ, you know, they're not overstruck with grief.
So fascinating that even in Sadhguru Jagjeet Singh Ji's Upadesh, you get all of these pockets of information that you just, I mean, the dukh that was coming to me was Pandat hoye.
ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਆ, you know, and ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹ ਤੁਕ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਰੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ, ਪਰ ਜਿਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਐਨੀਵੇ ਉਹ ਸੰਤ ਜੀ ਕੋਲ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੂੰ ਹਾਲੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ 'ਤੇ ਰੈਡੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਤੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਲ ਹੋਰ ਬੈਠ, you know, like as a teacher it's really, that's what you have to say sometimes to a student, Anna. And even you asked me that question a long time ago, when people ask you, and I say to them, and I can like come back in a month, come back in a 2 months. I don't have that in me, like, I'm trying to be that, but you know, if someone who's asked me 3 times, yeah, very seldom would I say no to them after the 3rd time.
That's the trick then. You're going to keep asking a trick. But you're right. I mean, the fact that, again, they sat for 1 year, right, initially, and they were like, kuch bane nahi hega. To be told again, ek aur saal baith.
Sach Paja says it in the updation. Just socho saad sangat ji ke ki man ch chalda hoega when someone says to you ek saal aur baith, and then you say yaar main bhukhe mere bacche bhukhe mar jane, idda ho jana, you know. ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਾਈ ਆ, everyone's really like, you know, everyone wants to be Maharaja Harishchandra, but tyagna kuch nahi chahte, you know. You want to, matlab aa cheez nu apa, you know, you don't want to do the hard work that goes with it. Jehdi kamai karni hai na, oh badi mushkil hai.
And is that because we don't know what we actually want to achieve at the end of it?
Yeah, I think so. You know, like ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਪਾਰਖ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ, someone who knows the difference, ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਕੀ ਪੋਟੈਟੋ 15 ਮਿੰਟਾਂ 'ਚ in the microwave ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦਾ, or 1.5 ਘੰਟੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ oven 'ਚ ਨੂੰ ਬਣਾਓ. Someone who knows the difference between the taste of the both, you know, they won't say, you know, कि ਮੈਨੂੰ microwave वाला दे दे. They'll happily wait for the 1.5 hours.
Do you see what I mean about the analogies?
Yeah,
that's so
honestly,
good.
I'm writing these down. We're making a book.
Even these are all plagiarized from different people. But you know, ਬਹੁਤਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, and I have this conversation always, and you know, some people will say, okay, what's the apple in Marks and Spencer's and the apple in Lidl? You know, is there any difference? Am I paying like £3 or whatever it costs in Marks and Spencer's and like 50 pence apple? Yeah, you know, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਫਰਕ ਥੋੜੀ ਆ. ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਵੀ, you know, like I'll buy the 50 pence one. And the person who knows the difference in the taste, all right, there's certain thing, you know, Marks and Spencer will use packaging and whatnot, yeah, and they'll say you're paying for the experience of coming to Marks and Spencer's, yeah, and to be seen to be in Marks and Spencer's and everything else, yeah. They'll add all of those things if you like put them aside, and if both the apples are exactly the same, fair nahi koi fark hai, but certainly there will be a like distinct quality difference, and the person who understands that difference in quality and will happily pay the expensive price. Jadon pata hi nahi ke what's the difference between the two, you know, they will always go for the cheaper one. And jadon hun apa, like a lot of people ask me this question, and okay, why is kirtan level gone so low? Ya pehla pratan kirtan idda hunda si te hun is tarah ho gaya. It's because they couldn't, you know, like those kirtani holi start saying, you know, why do I need to go to a guru and like, you know, do all of this pair cutting and, you know, seva and like go through this rigorous thing? If I learn these 4 compositions, siddhiyan and kairva dadra, and like ਵਿਆਹ ਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ order ਆਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ, why do I need to do all of this ਜਦੋਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਸਰੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ by doing just this, you know? So like, you know, whilst the other person's like going through that whole life grueling process, ਮੇਰਾ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਸਰ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ, so I don't need to do all of that. There are people making money at McDonald's, aren't they? You know, they're not fine dining, you know, but they're junk food, and that's what you really selling.
Just to that point, it's something reminded me of Sach Pansha Ji's bachan ki ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੁਰਾਤਨ ਰਾਗੀ ਵੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, they would spend an hour of doing Naam Simran before they went on stage to do Kirtan.
Someone who says, yeah, like, vaddu kar liya, you know, I don't need to do that 1 hour, you know. The ras kitho paida ho jana, you know, like you're kind of missing the essence.
To fir to main aa gayi na ki main ga raha,
you know, exactly, you know, like ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ, that's the hardest thing in Kirtan, na. You could be singing Man Tu Mat Man Kare, and like as soon as you come off the stage, someone said, yaar, you killed it today, you smashed it, bahut vadiya kita hai na, and you say, हाँ यार, तेरी ਗੱਲ ਨਾ ਸਹੀ ਆ. Or you might be saying ਨਹੀਂ ਪਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, there's a like spot for it, and ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਯਾਰ
ਸੀਕ੍ਰੇਟ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਚੱਲਦੀਆਂ ਪਈਆਂ, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਣੀ.
ਤੇ ਆ ਚੀਜ਼, you know, it's a really grueling process to overcome that, to be aware of that. And Sacha Pasha ਇਹੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤਾਂ, you know, who's got the like eye set on the goal, and ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਆ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ, then they kind of work the things, okay, ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾ ਆ ਚੀਜ਼ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ. So, you know, like if you're trying to save money and your expenditure is more than you're earning, you know, it's never going to work. ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਘੰਟਾ ਨਾਮ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ 2 ਘੰਟੇ ਨਿੰਦਿਆ ਕਰ ਲਓ, and say, ਯਾਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਯਾਰ. You know, so ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼, like, you know, someone who's got the eye on a goal, then they start thinking, all right, I've got to make sure I don't do this other one, otherwise it's gonna cut my income out on it.
I think that's really interesting, because I think that's why we started this podcast, right? So we started this podcast because we've all got pockets of listening to a dish or reading this or having these experiences, and bringing it together to share with Sangat who maybe have had the same things, and you know, they can resonate with them. So it's been amazing talking to you. Is there anything you'd like to ask us?
You're Jeremy Clarkson. And what are you? Who's James May? And out of you two?
If we're going height, I'm the shortest, so probably Richard Hammond.
Captain
And I'm slow.
Waki, he actually drives slow. We came here at 50 miles an hour. all the way around. Before we go, we want to ask you one thing. What is something that you've consumed, read, listened to, or heard this week that has stuck with you this week?
I think in terms of hearing, lucky I was with Sach Pasha Ji, and Sach Pasha Ji were talking about Chandi Diwar, and they said, we obviously look at Chandi Diwar as an internal battle. They said, look, how many times Indra has to call Durga? Durga never says no. Durga Mesha on the, she helps him. And through all that mess, fights for him, risks her own life, and, puts her, and does everything she can. But then once she's defeated everything, she doesn't say, she gives it back. She gives that Rajdhani back to Indra. It was just a very random discussion Sach Pasha Ji had with Nishan Singh Ji.
Similar train of thought. I think you guys went on a boat ride.
Yeah.
And Sach Pasha Ji asked Nishan Singh Ji about liberation and mukti, and at what cost does that come? And Sach Pasha Ji ne praman ditta, na ko bari na hai begana, sagal sang humko banai. Ki is gal naal hi mukti hai. Bas, and you're free from the entanglement of the world, just if you follow that one line.
ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਇਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਣ ਨਾਲ ਮੁਕਤੀ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਸ਼ੇਖ ਭਾਈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਹੈ ਅਸਲ ਮੰਜ਼ਿਲ ਅਲੱਗ
ਗਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ it's probably very synonymous with me, this shabad is, because ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸੇ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗੇ it's one of the first shabads we learned, and ਆਪਾਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਗਾਇਆ ਨਾ for a brief time ਸਾਡਾ ਨਾਂ ਹੀ ਬਿਸਰ ਗਈ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਆ ਦੇਖੋ ਬਿਸਰ ਗਈ ਆ ਗਏ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਇੰਨਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਇੰਨੇ levels of understanding ਮੈਂ ਲੈਣਾ ਜਬ ਤੇ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਮੋਹਿ ਪਾਈ ਬਿਸਰ ਗਈ ਸਭ ਤਾਤ ਪਰਾਈ. If you look at it that way, ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਧੂ ਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਮਤਲਬ ਫੇਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਅਵਸਥਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਤਾਤ ਪਰਾਈ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ that means ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਧੂ ਦੀ ਸਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸੰਗਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ. ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ all of us ਆਪਾਂ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਆ ਪਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੇ ਸਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ we will learn this from them ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਨਾ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਸੜਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ.
And practically is what they...
Practically. And if it comes in our mind, then you got to think why did that happen? So ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੇ trying to, let's say ਕੁਝ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਿਆ, cake didn't rise. You kind of have to find ਕਿ what was wrong in the process. ਤੇ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਬੰਦਾ ਜੇ ਸੋਚਣ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਵੇ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਨਾ ਕੋ ਬੈਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਿਗਾਨਾ ਸਗਲ ਸੰਗਮ ਕੋ ਬਨੇ ਆਈ ਜੋ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਕੀਨੋ ਸੋ ਪਲ ਮਾਨਿਓ ਇਹੋ ਸਮਤ ਸਾਧੂ ਤੇ ਪਾਈ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਜਦ ਤੱਕ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਆਪ ਵਿਚਾਰੋਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ 'ਚ ਕੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ if someone else if I'm thinking they're bad the badness is in me the problem's in me somewhere you start have to looking through your spreadsheet of your income expenditure ਤੇ ਯਾਰ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਗਈ problem ਕਿੱਥੇ ਸੀਗੀ where did the numbers get mixed up ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਭਣਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਟਾਈਮ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਐਂਡ ਸੌਖਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੁਰੂ just points it out ਪਰ we how many times have we sat in the class and we saying I hope the guru doesn't point this out hope ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲ ਨਾ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਰਦੇ ਟੱਕ ਦੇ ਯਾਰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਨਾ ਤੂੰ ਕਹਿ ਦੀ ਪਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੀ all of your bad things come to your mind straight away because you think ਇਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ he knows what's actually going on what I've been up to over the past whatever ਇਹ ਮੇਰੀ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਬਾਹਰੋਂ ਦੀ ਜਾਣਦਾ and that's why ਉਹਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਝੂਠ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੋਲਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ and ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਉਹ ਸਮਤ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰ ਲਓ there was a time where I just said I'm not going to sing this ਸ਼ਬਦ ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਆਪਾਂ ਗਾਈਦਾ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਚੰਗਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ you see in a different way.
I was reading Sukhane Beyant and there was a section, obviously Sukhane Beyant is from another book from Bite Diya Pada of somebody called Kavi Pritam Singh, and Kavi Pritam Singh, a childhood friend of Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji, and when you read their writings it literally feels like you're travelling with Sadhguru Ji, and they're talking about the 1978 Holla. And they, out of their own earnings, I think they said around 385 rupees or some other botsi, that they've saved that up, and I think it amounted to about a month's wages for them. And they said, I've saved that up, and they gave it towards the Holla of 1978. and Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji comes to the gate that they've made, and ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਸੀ that they wanted to make a really nice gate for Sadhguru Ji to enter from. And when Sadhguru Ji saw the gate, Sadhguru Ji said ਕਿ ਇਹ gate ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵਾਧੂ ਖਰਚੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਸੰਦ, ਹਨਾ. And Kavi Ji saying that in my mind at that moment, I felt like getting a saw and cutting down the gate because it's useless now. That if my Sadhguru doesn't like it, I might as well just destroy it. कोई फायदा ही नहीं है इस गेट दा. And उस दिन ते आनंद कारज होने सी, and he was a Sodhi, and he's gone to sit in the Havan. And he said, I've gone to sit in the Havan, and the whole Havan, I don't know when the Havan started, I don't know when it finished, the whole time I'm thinking, what's the point of that gate? That I want to go and destroy it. All my money that I've saved to put towards the Holla, even that money is useless now. And he's saying that as I'm sitting in the Havan, I don't know when it started, I don't know when it's ended, and Sadhguru Ji is looking at Kavi Ji and does a shara for them to come to the stage. And ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੈਰ ਨੰਗੇ ਸੀ because they were sitting in the Havan, and although ਕੱਚਾ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਸੀ, if they've got to the front, their feet are a little bit dirty. We would say dirty ਦੁਨੀਆਦਾਰੀ ਦੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ, but ਚਲੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੋੜ ਸੀ. And look at Sadhguru Ji's nimrata. When before getting on the stage, out of respect, they started wiping down their feet, and the Sadhguru Ji loudly said, Singha, ਇਹ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੂਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਦਿਓ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਹੋਲਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ. I wanted to share that's something when I was reading it stuck with me, that look how Sadhguru Ji dil da jaਣਦੇ ਹੋਏ they put everything to one side and say that no, everything you've thought ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਹੈ ਜੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ.
Something that stuck with me this week was I was listening to Joe Rogan podcast. He was doing a podcast with The Rock, you know. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson. So before they done the podcast, they trained for 3 hours. Now that gal that Pali Baji was saying, because they both, Joe Rogan's MMA fighter, The Rock is old wrestler, but he's a bodybuilder. But that thing where they've gone to do something else, but they were joined by something, and that something was training, but that could be anything. So like you said at the beginning of this, I don't think we got this on the recording, but Sangeet joins everyone in that way. There's different things in this world that we can bring everyone together and essentially have that oneness.
I think it's a good point to end. And again, a huge thank you to Ustad Ji for joining us. And I say Ustad Ji because I've spent some time learning, as we all have, I think, through this conversation. So thank you. And hopefully next time we'll have Gurdit Baji as well, because you'll
tell the story a lot better. Sare te kripa karan, we can learn of each other, and ek duje nu dekh ke positive ਆਪਾਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧੀ ਜਾਣ.